All right, hopefully this works. I'm here for the Vincent Gallo impressions. Okay, if I knew that Prude wasn't gonna be here, I wouldn't have started. I would have started. Okay. But anyways, so no, Prude is not. He's gonna be a few minutes late. So I mean, I'm gonna do a bit of the introduction myself, and let's wait for people to clear. Oh, here he is. Thank God. Oh,
I'd be a few minutes late, and you start without me.
oh no.
Okay, understood.
No. I only. It was only a minute.
No.
Okay. I did.
Okay.
Fraser demanded a Vincent Gallo impression. If I knew you weren't going to be here, I wouldn't have started. But I started on habit. I don't know. I'm not sure of myself. Okay. But anyways,
You're the reason why I drink, Gio.
I'm a bit. The Leafs will never sign McDavid. Yeah, thank you, Darby. I know. Okay, it's disappointing, but I knew that was going to happen. I mean, they shoved a pile of money in Connor McDavid's face, even though they have an abysmal bottom end, except for Zach Hyman and a few others, and they have abysmal goaltending. So make of that what you will. But anyways, this is Digital Archipelago, episode 137. And I thought you were going to be like 10 minutes late, Prude. That's why I was like...
I managed to get... I was at a meeting that I had to attend.
Oh, okay. But was the meeting done, though?
No, it wasn't. But I said I had a hard cutoff at 7 my time. So they were like, okay, so...
Yeah.
For those who like are grass touchers like myself, this was stuff I had to do IRL. This was a parish council meeting, and I sit on my parish council, so I had to be there.
Oh, I thought it was like a business meeting.
It was a business meeting because I'm the treasurer and I handle the money, so it's business to me.
Okay, yeah. That's you're right.
Not my choice. I got voluntold to do this position.
Yeah. So there's we're only going to spend a tiny bit of time on the news. There really isn't I had a very interesting experience today.
Yeah.
Speaking of the news, I was in I had to drive my mother to a appointment, and she had surgery recently. And we had to, because the Canadian healthcare system, we had to drive like in the GTA basically. And it was funny because I was in the waiting room, and there was like the news was on CBC, right? Canadian Broadcasting Center. And it was the Mark Carney and Donald Trump meeting. And it was funny because there was like this like old boomer who was like very loudly listening to it on his phone as well, like giving an audio to like the visual, right? And he was like snickering and laughing and saying like what an asshole Trump is. And I mean, I'm not like the biggest fan as I once was of Donald J. Trump, but like it was kind of like a weird disconnect for me because like Mark Carney was laughing and joking, and he was like basically being a bit acquiescent to Donald Trump because why not, right? He's there for one reason, which is to score a deal with America. But this like the constituency that voted for Mark Carney less than a year ago, it was like they think like it's the other way around. Like Carney's gonna like do the job, man. It's like no, but Carney's doing the job in a professional wrestling sense, in a weird way, and because he has to. And it was just like it was a very weird disconnect, I feel. And I think like it goes to a concept of an article I'm writing about that was inspired by a mutual's tweet about the sort of like speciation of culture and reality, or the way that people perceive reality. And I think that's what we're going to talk about tonight with Norman Mailer. Not to be like totally like, I'm trying to move away a bit from the hot takes, right? But it was a very vivid demonstration. It was that. And when I was driving into the GTA, I glanced over, and of course there was someone micturating on the sidewalk. So that was another demonstration. But anyways, this is episode 137, the vibes-based economy which will make sense when we read this article by Norman Mailer. And how have you been, Prude?
Man, I'm all right. I really can't complain. It's always weird to ask that question because I'm like, how much should I lie? How much should I tell you? Like all
I'm not
men
doing too good. I had a tooth pulled recently, so I'm kind of funny.
Damn.
Yeah, it was brutal too.
Did your dentist hold on to antiquated beliefs that because you're redheaded that you don't feel pain?
No. I think I was supposed to go for a crown, but then I kind of cracked it. I was dealing with a bunch of other stuff, and I shouldn't have waited too long. And I felt this funny feeling in I'm like, oh man, please don't let it please no, because but yeah, it was pretty brutal. But I'm better now. I mean, I don't know if you could tell, like, does my voice sound different or no? You sound the same?
You sound the same.
Okay, yeah. But you know what's crazy though is because I have a bit of a small mouth, and like it's the same place as I had another tooth that was bothering me, but like parallel. So maybe it's like the shape of my jaw or the shape of my mouth that's like creates pressure. But anyways, you don't want to hear about that. Well, how's your day like, Prude?
Well, I took yesterday off work, in part because I had to get some things done. I had to get new tires, get all that taken care of, which did not end up happening. I was thoroughly upset. I had to get them done earlier this afternoon after work. But no, I was in Dallas, Texas yesterday for a film premiere for an indie Orthodox Christian film, El Tanto por Cristo, which hopefully I'll have a review out on Substack either tomorrow or Thursday. And it was kind of, I have to be careful now when I write about it because I'm like, oh, I know most of the cast personally, and I know most of the people involved in the project, but also like I don't.
Was Gravantis in it?
No, Gravantis was not. No. The film is based in Texas, so all the shooting locations were areas that I knew, and so it was like strange to see people I'm personally acquainted with in the film, and I'm like, oh man, I can't really write too much. For obvious reasons, but no, it was an enjoyable film. It was a good time to go to a movie premiere and see friends and people I know throughout the community. So it was lovely. It was a really great time. And then I'm recording with Capitalissimo to give Wingman 45. I don't know if he's in chat right now, or he usually is, but he's been paying for all the K-pop Demon Hunters reviews. So he got the live episode with Cap and Mike, and Cap and I are going to talk about it more in depth, I guess, from a more spiritual, cultural lens, because everyone and their mother's already talked about it, so I'm never going to say no when someone wants me to talk about things. I just finished recording earlier last week with our mutual friend Last Things. We talked about the 2023 Wim Wenders film Perfect Days, which I thought was a really good conversation. It was we both...
a Korean film?
Well, German director based in Japan.
Japan. Yeah.
It was a really good time. Although we both come to the conclusion that we really want to go.
$100. Napoleon Dynamite. $100.
Go pay him. $100. $100 to either review Napoleon Dynamite or a Quan Mills novel.
Yes, I will lower
I have
my
a
price
bounty for both.
I would prefer Entropy, but it's funny because the second part of my interview with Shane Swanson came out last week too.
I was listening to it at work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I had to censor that one because we had to talk about certain political movements near the end. So that's if you want to go to the paywall version of that. So certain figures on Twitter, and it was pretty good though.
Well, he's an old head, so he kind of knows a lot of the lore.
Yeah, he's an ancient head. You don't know the half of it, man. No, I really like the part where I'll probably do a short on it, where we talked about the face in Orthodox iconography. I really like that part. But anyways, what was this film about? Was it just about Orthodoxy in America? Or
no, it was well, I say fictional, although it depicts a monk abbot who, by all definitions, would fit as the title implies, he's a fool for Christ.
Man.
And so it's a series of vignettes sort of depicting his life and role as a holy father, as well as the monastic community that he leads and the people around him who he serves and takes care of in spiritual guidance. And there's a really funny scene in the film where I guess a married couple comes to him for his blessing or for prayers for a surgery, and he has to admit that the woman is getting surgery for cosmetic reasons, and he just kind of like very flippantly like kind of blows up at her, but he's just like, lest we forget how dangerous these things can be, and may God keep you. And it's funny for me even more on a personal level, because like I know the two actors there quite well. I work with them, and it's just like, man, it's kind of weird seeing a straight-laced kind of person go play in a sort of comedic scene. It was really good. So yeah, no, it
Will
was
it be
really
available on Tubi?
probably not. It's on tour right now in certain films. I may be able to swing you a digital copy, but I don't want to really engage in
I'd really like to
piracy
see
for this. It was a lovely film. It was black and white. You could definitely see some of its Tarkovsky and French New Wave influences, but it was really enjoyable. I had a lovely time. It was very good. Yeah, other than that, like it's just been a lot of IRL shit kind of piling on and piling on and piling on.
Yeah.
So I think I'm finally gonna November, ironically, right as we turn around to the Thanksgiving and Christmas seasons, my life will actually slow down in terms of not being so hectic. Like the last like month and a half has been
in November.
I know. Like it's sort of nuts. Like I'm going to North Carolina for Thanksgiving to be with the future in-laws and meet more family, and then I might go see some friends in Louisiana also that month. But that will be far more relaxing than just like for the last couple of weeks, either recording or doing other activities where it's just been like I haven't had like a day off or between work and then coming here. So it's like nice to take a breather. And hopefully this Friday I'll get more painting done, because I would like to also have my Saturdays back. I've spent every Saturday for the last like month working on an icon, and I'd like to be finished painting with it. We're almost done. So
I've been getting a lot of painting done.
I've been posting some work in progress shots on my private Telegram chat, Frog Noir, but when it's done, I'll go share with the class.
Are you still using tempera?
Yes. Yeah, using egg tempera. Although I am working on I'm working on 2 icons right now that they're half finished. They were started by a late priest friend, and they were given to me to finish. So
they still finish in oils, or this?
No, well, well, for these are in acrylic, so I'm kind of gonna.
Yeah, Shane uses acrylic. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they'll be sealed in sort of an oil polyurethane spray on those, just because the material I'm working with. The ones in egg tempera get sealed in oil.
Yeah, that's how they developed the Misch technique in Germany. The Van Eyck brothers. You'd start off with tempera, Indie ink, sketch, then tempera, then you do your color layers, all in oils. But I recently switched to oils just for plein air work because I want to continue painting in the winter. And unfortunately, acrylics crack in the winter. Any water-based medium will, except for like you can get away with it with watercolor if you're very careful to have like a heated jar or something with warm water. But yeah, I find it's not too dissimilar for what I do with acrylic in terms of my technique of going the rule of fat over lean. My base, I have a pretty basic setup. Like I just have Gamsol and then solvent-free gel. But I don't know, I might experiment with other things. I might experiment with liquid or whatever. But it's not too much dramatic of a shift. But anyways,
well, you're more of an artist than I am, so.
Yeah, you get accustomed to it because the way I painted acrylic is very similar to going very lean, very transparent upwards towards impasto. But speaking of painting, if you are watching, I don't know if you're watching now, but you'll probably be watching later. If you are in the UK, if you are in London, our good friends have the exhibition 2. It is called it's organized by Pharaoh, Ego, and Matthew the Stout, are good friends. It's called Power and Intimacy, and it's got a bunch of my friends like Art Dano and, of course, Sven de Villiers. And I was also supposed to have a piece in it, but then I think UPS fucked me again. So I was just dealing with a bunch of stuff with my mother, and I should have shipped it out last month. but hopefully it still arrives in time because it started on Monday, and I believe it's going to go all the way to this Sunday. So if you're in the London area, London, England, in the UK, go and check out Matthew the Stout. If someone wants to post a link, if it's on his Twitter, if you search Matthew Stout on Twitter, he has a link to the exhibition page. And of course, Alexander Adams is also involved, and a bunch of other people. And there's also a friend of mine out in Australia who also has an exhibition if you're an Aussie. Let me look it up. He has a book out too, but maybe I should just go and look for the links to post in the chat. But you talk for a little bit, Prue, and then I'll find the links.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, outside of being busy, I'm kind of glad that you had. I know you're writing that essay on speciation, but it is true. Like I was in a conversation that kind of you and I are in the same chat. I think you had kind of left after some provocative discussion over U.S.-Canada relations. But one of the things that did get openly discussed quite frequently was sort of like the discussion between when things are variable controlled, because like clearly there is going to be a difference between like the iPad baby and then the like crunchy homeschool mom that sends their kid to like a classical Christian school or something. And you're going to see those two things play out. And at the same time, politically speaking, like it is kind of wild already to see the differences, because man, oh man, there is the kids who are younger than you and I are way more radical than I was at that age. And, you know, it's just the nature of what you grow up into. So, I mean, I think that, yeah, we're going to definitely see something, but not just speciation in the sense of like mental capability, but also like our frame of reference is totally shaped by the content we consume.
Yeah.
Like we can definitely tell when someone's like a TikTok baby in comparison to, you know, something else. And it's like, okay,
someone who grew up on Tumblr and 4chan.
Yeah, like I grew up on Tumblr and 4chan, and like we all had the meme about like that kid, like we're the first generation of kids raised by the internet.
Oh,
YouTube
I hate that.
Gay. Tumblr taught me to be gay. Like 4chan taught me I was gay. And it's like, yeah, like there's a lot of
4chan taught me to Triforce. Yeah,
it's so true. You know, because certain new slurs can't Triforce. Millhouse isn't a meme, is a meme. Like I remember, I remember that. I remember being 14, you know, and not being on websites like God knows I shouldn't have been on.
But by the way, so the links here in the chat. This is to Theros. Go to his Twitter page. That will have the dates and the location of the gallery of the exhibition number 2 called Power and Intimacy. And this is my good friend Ryan Dufferin. He has a book out, and he's represented by a gallery in is it either Brisbane or in Sydney? I have to let's see here. Where is it? It's called Ryan W. Dufferin. His book is out by Bonfire Books, or Books Bonfire, and it's the Kudo Gallery, show until the 12th of October. And so that is where he's also so he's involved in it, but I think he's an Aussie.
That's a spicy book publisher name.
Yeah. But so he's also at the exhibition at the Kudo Gallery, CUDO, and you can find all the links if you search Matthew the Stout or Pharaoh Ego on Twitter. And so there you go. But anyway, BME Pain Olympics. Oh my god, wasn't that fake? That was like a hot dog. That was fake.
We should create a BMP Olympics though, or like paint, you know, MS Paint Championship. Go. Like I want fucking.
Do you remember MXC?
Get Emily Yukis, Nightmare Friend, and Fraser Payne in a competition of who can make like the best
and
meme
Chaos Prime,
or art in like an hour using
Chaos
MS Paint.
Reigns. Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
God. Do you remember? Apparently on YouTube they have the MXC channel now. I remember like when I would like go for dinner at my grandmother's house, and like me and a few people would be like watching Spike TV, and they'd have like MXC on. That's like, oh man, that was great. Like that's It's like a 24/7 live stream on Twitter now. Not on Twitter, on YouTube. But anyway, need those super chats. The pinned tweet is the pinned comment is to the Entropy, and all our links, both me and Prudes, are down below. And I prefer that you donate to Entropy, but if not, YouTube is just fine. Can we hit the goal? So there you go. And anyways, you were saying Prude about speciation?
Oh yeah, just I think that we can clearly tell like where people get their news from these days. I mean, not just sort of like the obvious, like, oh, well, you must be, we can kind of tell just by posting, but also in the sense that we're now going to be able to see how we talk. Like how many Twitterisms are now part of your like daily lingo?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, this isn't like a judgment call. It's more of a like observation, like, okay, like clearly this sort of framework is now like pierced into the way we engage in our conversations day to day. Like, this happened to me like a couple of years ago, sitting in the waiting room. This was like when I was still on dialysis, and I had used the word Lindy in a conversation. I had to explain that to my mother.
Oh.
Like not only the Lindy principle, but like, that too. Like, well, I didn't explain who Paul Scalise was. I think I was already blocked by him by that time. I've been blocked by him since I think I got on the bloody platform, and which not that I'm complaining. I can still read his stuff if I wanted to, but also it's kind of wild. Like didn't he have like a piece in GQ not too recently? Or Variety, something like that.
Well, he had an Arts and Life in the New York Times, but I believe he also had a piece in GQ recently. So
wild.
Yeah, he really sold his soul for all of that, for just being like a PDF copier. But like,
I'm kind of because like
Justin Murphy had the best video on Scholars.
Well, there's a tweet of his that has stuck with me where he talks about, I think he's explaining the concept of brown rage. And I'm like, how did that work? Like, they didn't seem to care, I guess, or whatever. Oh, well,
Yeah, you can get away with it. Because, like, I think, like, this really does explain... you know what? Screw it. I was going to say, like, this explains this sort of, like, for lack of a better term, New York City scene where they'll, like, flirt with online rightism, but, like, they do it from like an ironist safe position, and so they don't really have to like suffer the consequences the way like a fully fledged frog would. And I think Scholars, like, I mean, props to him in terms of his marketing ability. I mean, I think like repackaging certain concepts into very easily repeatable phrases is very like effective. And I think like I've probably suffered from not being coherent enough in my content to where I'm bouncing up and down, and I maybe should change that. But I think like there definitely is a market now for that type of thing. And my worriment is that there's there's a certain very spicy old head that posted this image of the slot machine, but it was like in based regalia, sort of like giving your talking points back to you, but it not like really meaning a whole lot. And I think like that's ultimately the problem that one faces when, similar to I think what Norman Mailer talked about back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, where you're trying to create a countercultural movement that is viable on a national and international level, but ultimately you are suffering the same process of co-option and having the regime sort of spit your talking points back at you in very neutered forms. And I think that's always, I know that's a very cynical point, and I know a lot of people would say that that's blackpilling or whatever, but I think that if you're really genuine about your sort of countercultural status, you should be kind of concerned. And I think like even friends of ours, for example, in the alternative literature movement that's going on online, it's good to have mainstream attention, but there's always sort of in the back of your mind, there is always that fear or that reality that you could be utilized as sort of like a marketing stunt, sort of like, in the early 90s, you had grunge, and by 95, you had like grunge fashion shows sort of deal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of would like to see Nutcracker in Walmart, though. That would be kind of funny. That would be like not even Walmart, like Nutcracker in like Barnes and Noble would in like the Fed Book and Nutcracker and Mixtape Hyperborea. Imagine like a whole shelf of these in Barnes and Noble. That would be like, I don't know. That would.
Well, it's
be
really
kind of
upsetting,
funny.
for instance, that like there aren't like in France, right? Like there are very explicit right-wing bookstores. Like that's not something that exists. And I mean, it's obviously in the city where there's like an intellectual scene. Like if New York had like a right-wing bookstore, I mean, like obviously it would probably have the worst books imaginable because it's New
Dime
York.
Store bookstore.
Yeah, like the Dime Square bookstore, right?
Sponsored by Sovereign House.
Sponsored by insert group you don't like here, right? Like it'd be perfect. Which of course that doesn't really exist functionally speaking, but like that would be the place I would want to carry it. I want the right wing bookstore. I do.
Yeah, it would be a cool concept.
That would be great. Yeah. Come down to the right wing bookstore, sponsored by would you like your first issue of Palladium magazine on your way out? Would you like to discuss the competency crisis with a vodka cranberry while holding a copy of Dan Baltic's Nutcracker? It'd be, it'd be good. I'd run that store. I'd sell out. I'd take your fucking money.
That's like the collapse of the most popular Antifa bookstore in Portland. Because like the people that owned the store, they're like, yeah, we're not making any money. But then the collective running the store of, all the people you can imagine, they're sort of like, you heard about that case, right? They wanted to collectivize the bookstore, which I mean, good on them, might as well, right? But like, it's on brand to collectivize the bookstore. But,
yeah, I've never been to any sort of like Antifa related.
A Gio plushie, Gio Graper plushie. We gotta.
There you go.
You and Mike with Paul have to discuss doing this.
We with plush or with your mugs, everything there. That's
on Patreon. If you donate $20, I want to send out I have new woodcut prints I'm working on. But if you're at the $20 here on my Patreon, you will get a mug from Patreon of my my symbol, my promptu or whatever they call it. A Gio Fumo.
Oh no,
well, that'd be something else. No, but the Antifa bookstore. I wanted to talk a little bit about Marineland, but go ahead.
Oh no, because like in one of my favorite bookstore, and I'm sure it's obviously owned by a bunch of like lefties, but like the bookstore, I think it's like Owl's Bookstore in Portland, Oregon. Like it's like the size of a city block. That's probably the most amazing bookstore I have ever been to in my entire life. Tragic. I don't know what happened to it.
I think was that the one that they were going to collectivize over the owner?
No, I hope not.
No.
I certainly hope not. It's too good of a bookstore to be destroyed like that. But I mean, it's Portland, Oregon. It probably did get destroyed like that, or it got destroyed during 2020. I don't know. I've not been to Portland since 2017, 16.
Yeah.
Don't ever want to go back.
You went to Portland?
Well, it was for a college thing. It wasn't because I wanted to go for political reasons.
Oh, yeah.
This was not because I thought this would be very good for my, so-called career. I was still in school at the time.
But what
I do like the right-wing bookstore idea, or even just like the Twitter bookstore idea. Like you could have everything, because everyone and their mother, it doesn't matter what part of Twitter you're on, there's going to be someone who has written a book, right? Like the weird, the Nadia Emerpova lady, like her book on like anti-memetics could be there. All the teapot people and their shitty books could be there. Like Yudikowski's book about Harry Potter and logic or whatever.
All the passage books will be there.
Yeah, it'd be great. And then, of course, all the other fun, edgy books could be there if you wanted them to. And
you'd have like a special back room, kind of like the the original black metal music store.
And then you can have like
Norway.
the little partition, like you would if you wanted to go,
Like
buy a dirty movie.
Yeah,
And you could go buy. I don't know. What's the closest thing to like a gore novel we have in this part of Twitter?
Incel.
There you go. You could buy Incel.
Yeah.
You could buy something other spicy books like Apostate Gallery used to do.
Yeah, you'll have like Apocalypse Confidential books. You'll have Passage books. You'll have like all the alt-lit people.
Yeah,
it could work. Like if someone had the capital to do it, that
damn well who has the capital to do that. Which then once they decide to actually open a bookstore in that part of New York, everyone will bitch.
Yeah, you could buy Hestia cigarettes at the counter.
Yeah, smoke your Hestias and buy your
buy Nutcranker
and crank out to Nutcranker. It'll be fine.
Oh my god, that's too much, man. That's too much. But anyways, yeah. So Marineland, very close to my heart. I only went once when I was a kid. They want to dispatch. They want to maid the beluga whales or the bottlenose dolphins because the Canadian government has blocked them from shipping all of them to a much larger public amusement park in China. And it's against some kind of law, but then they're also asking the Canadian government to help them with food expenses and medical care. And they've denied this. And so it's a really grim situation. I mean, Marineland has been on the forefront of this sort of like animal rights and amusement park scandals for years now. And so I mean, I don't know. I hope that I don't know if there's a way to like put them back in the wild because they've been in captivity for so long. But I don't know. I think like I mean, I understand like the provincial government doesn't want to like foot the bill, but at the same time, I would hate to see all of those creatures, mated. So I don't know. It's a very grim situation.
So they're just gonna euthanize them?
Yeah, because they're running out of money and they can't take care of them allegedly, and they blocked this attempt to transport them to this amusement park in China. So China would wet market all of the no. Well, apparently it is like a legitimate amusement park in China, but of course, like the Canadian government's like, well, they're also known for like animal rights violations, and it is China, and so I mean, it's a pretty tough situation. I was listening while I was driving. I was listening to John Oakley talk about it.
Speaking of Canadians getting offed, did you hear that Robert Munch got approved for maid?
Yes, I heard that. It's very sad.
I mean, I get ALS.
Well, he's old though. Yeah,
he's 80 with ALS. Like,
semi-legit. I would say that's a legitimate case. It's ALS is a terrible condition. But I mean, it is very sad. Like,
it basically accounted for 5% of deaths in Canada in 2023.
Yeah. Then there's the allegations of the organ harvesting thing as well. No, but Robert Munch, when I was a little kid, my mother always read me the book "I Love You Forever." You know that one?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. That's the book I know.
I think every kid knows that one.
Yeah,
of a millennial generation. Yeah. But no, yeah. So it's a very sad situation. But in terms of the Mark Carney meeting, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, it's they seem pretty jovial, and like JD Vance and little Marco was there along with Carney's people. But I don't know if Chrystia Freeland was there. I think Chrystia Freeland took some kind of pro-Ukraine ambassadorship position. But no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think like it's a spectacle, but it's ultimately probably much ado about nothing. And I don't know. I mean, I hope there's a trade deal coming. I hope that Trump shows a bit of mercy on us. But and as for the other event of this today, we're not going to talk about
that. It would be real nice if they could, because it'd make my job a lot easier.
Yeah. And as for the other event of today, we're not going to.
What other event?
It's October 7th.
Oh.
We're not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. But anyways, let's move
It
on.
will. All I will say is that it will continue to remain a thorn, mainly on the left side than the right.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it will be for both, but I mean, this issue has fundamentally radicalized the left in a lot of ways, which is wild.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I mean, let them, I guess,
Yeah. I mean, you all know my position. I tend to lean, more towards the pro-Palestinian position. But no, let's not. Let's move on. So it's just too hot.
Okay.
It's too much.
It's too controversial.
Yeah. Not that we shy away from controversy, but I mean, I don't want to spend.
God knows we don't.
Yeah, we're trying to change that, but I don't want to spend a whole stream just talking about that again.
We could be here for hours.
We literally could be here.
We literally
for hours,
could.
Yeah.
Because Gio and I will probably agree on maybe like 90% of things, and it's going to be that 10% that takes 3 hours.
But has there been? I don't think there's been an agreement yet.
No. There's been claims that there has been, claims that there hasn't been. I know Trump did some photo op stuff today, but I mean, 2 years ago is basically when the Democratic coalition was going to fall. It was the day the Democratic coalition fell apart.
Yeah.
But now they don't have to worry about it falling apart because now they've just escalated and saying like, yeah, that might be controversial, but you know what we're even more controversial about that we endorse? Killing our political opponents. And it's just like the guy,
Yeah.
is he running for AG or lieutenant governor in Virginia? The black guy who was like, I wish not only that Republican guy got killed, but like his kids too. And everyone's defending him.
I remember I saw Orkbrand do a video on him.
Yeah.
On Twitter. That was he was heated. Like it was, but then which influence? It was some lawyer that said, I know it's a controversial remark, but so he said a controversial humorous remark. It's a humorous remark. And I'm like, okay, that's yeah, but anyways.
I think he had said something along the lines of like who hasn't thought about it before? And I'm like, yeah like sure, like but never to a point where
they keep telling on themselves. I know it's
like it is just telling on themselves. Like, what else am I supposed to say? Well,
like I said last week, it's like there's I think there's obviously like a marketed difference between like some kind of like far right like anime Austrian painter fan on Twitter that's like posting stuff that's outlandish that has it's an anon, and as opposed to people in positions of power that are expressing very sadistic beliefs towards their opposition. So, I mean, there's obviously a marketed difference. And I think people trying to equate the two is really outlandish and I shouldn't even have to say it. I feel so stupid even pointing that out. But
you're absolutely right. Cause it's just like, what are we doing here at this point? It's like everyone kind of.
But come Graper88 on Twitter, he said that Hassan Piker should be deported. I go, okay, yeah, but then a sitting representative. He should. But like, did you see the recent allegations that he has a shock collar on his dog? Did you see that?
I saw, yeah.
Yeah. In the video, I mean, I'm not going to accuse him of that, but like the video did kind of look. He did kind of look like he was allegedly pressing a button, allegedly. But no, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's something very foolish to even point out that someone in a position of power saying these things is very disturbing, and people who are doctors and nurses and lawyers saying the same things, or a certain lawyer sharing deep fakes that are very horrendous and terrible. It's just that's different than like some right wing anon with an anime or a Graper account.
Is bad as this phrase.
Not that I endorse like sending death threats to people or anything. I'm not saying,
sure. But like it's bad. Like I said, as bad as the what's the word it is? As bad as this term is in a lot of places. Boy, oh boy, do I hate to say it, but I have to. Power dynamics and power difference.
Notice how they forgot all of those lessons, from the 20, the past
Let's
60
apply
years.
the lessons of Me Too here. and realize that, yeah, the left has no problem killing you.
Well, so anyways, it's, what's very funny is that moving on to the topic, I know we've only 40 minutes on the news. That's a record for us. Norman Mailer, ostensibly is a man of the left, or was a man of the left, but he is so compelling and interesting. And yes, he was very problematic in terms of his relation to women and so on and so forth, his wife. But at the same time, like, I feel like if he was alive nowadays, he probably would have gone down the same road as sort of like Johnny Rotten or Ariel Pink or, other people that were sort of like the left me sort of deal. And you could kind of see that in his.
No one can hear you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Uh-oh.
I see your voice move. I can't. Oh.
This is weird.
No, hold on. We're good.
Okay, yeah.
It was on my end. Sorry.
Yeah. Can you hear me in the chat?
That was my fault.
Okay, yeah. No, what I was saying, Prude, is that he kind of would be a figure of like the left me sort of deal.
Oh, yeah.
And you could see it a little bit in his infamous debate with Gore Vidal. Why can't, that's another thing. Like, why can't, I know, like, Gore Vidal probably would be celebrating. No, probably, I don't know.
Oh, no, yes, he would. Yes, he would. Like, if William F. Buckley Jr. got assassinated like Charlie Kirk did, you know damn well that Gore Vidal would write an op-ed in the New York Times denouncing political violence, but rejoicing that crypto-Nazi is dead.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because they didn't know each other personally.
Who?
And Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley.
No, yes, they did. They famously debated during the 1968 Democratic and Republican convention.
Yes, it was keynote content, yeah.
Yeah, they did know each other, and they still kept in communication. Like, Gore called him a crypto-Nazi on television, and Buckley lost his shit, saying he'd sop him in his gosh darn mouth.
And he allegedly called him F-slur, too.
Well, I mean...
You can that there was the best at the end when he said that. William Buckley's like, "You'll go back to your pornography." Like, it was very like, oh man, it was like internet blood sports, sort of like Gore Vidal versus Norman Mailer. It was like internet blood sports before the internet. I don't know. I like to give Gore. I mean, I think like we need better leftists. Obviously, like Gore Vidal definitely was a cut above Hassan Piker or whoever, Destiny. I mean, it goes without saying. You can't like really compare Men of Letters to
Man demands better psyops. News at 11.
But so Norman Mailer had a very complicated relationship to the left, especially when he published that book on the actual revolution, and that is what led to the infamous spat. That and also his critique of Kate Millett and the anti-prawn movement at the time, figures like Millett and Dworkin and McKinnon. And so I think like Norman Mailer, if he were alive today, he would have tried to, although I don't know, I wouldn't want to like presuppose that he'd like start wearing a MAGA hat or whatever, but I think that he probably would have had a more nuanced view of the whole thing. Although he really did hate George W. Bush, though. Like the essays in Mind of an Outlaw, he really does critique both his father and, W. Bush, which, I mean, rightfully so at the time. But I just think that his words were more magnanimous and high-minded, although yes, very self-indulgent nevertheless. I mean, is Norman Mailer, than a lot of cultural critics that came after him. Cultural criticism, sort of took a nosedive, and in a way he predicted it. If you read his essay critiquing American Psycho, for instance, in this book, he sort of like literary criticism and social criticism went to a variety of extremes and ended up producing, I mean, I guess you could say like in a way produced slop, but yeah, but anyways, aristocratic Gore Vidal, there you go. Steve Super Chats.
Are you ready to pull out the essay?
Yes, okay. The first one we have here, before we get to the white expletive, we're only going to read it. I think we'll probably read a little bit of that. But this is, where is it here? Here we go. From surplus value to mass media. And hence the name of the stream, the vibes-based economy. So, and this is a time where Norman Mailer was flirting with Marxism. And so it comes out a bit in this critique. So, no one can work his way through Das Kapital without etching on his mind forever the knowledge that profit must come from loss. The loss energy of one human being paying for the comfort of another. If the process has become 10 times more suitable, complex, and untraceable in the modern economy, and conceivably 100 times more resistant to careful analysis of the insulated radical, it is perhaps now necessary that some of us have been so brash as to cut a trail of speculation across subjects as vast as the title of this piece, From Surplus Value to Mass Media. Let me state that with a trivial discrepancy. Today, one can buy a can of frozen orange juice sufficient to make a quart for 30 cents. A carton of prepared orange juice equal in quality costs 45 cents. Wow, imagine a glass of orange juice, 45 cents. That's, The difference in price is certain not to be found by the value of the container, nor in the additional cost of labor and machinery which is required to squeeze the oranges, since the process which produces frozen orange juice is, if anything, more complex. The oranges must be first squeezed and then frozen. Of course, orange juice would come in quarter cartons, is more expensive to ship, but is doubly so if the additional cost could account for more than 2 or 3 cents in the price. And then, so let's skip ahead. He's still talking about frozen oranges. The consumer's private productive time is worth much more than the commodities. To him, that is social working time, because in his private productive time, that is the time necessary to profit from his household functions, is time taken away from his leisure. And this is the important point here, leisure. If he earns $3 an hour by his labor, it is probable that he values his leisure time as worth ideally 2 or 3 times as much. And so remember, he's writing this in 1959. So that gives you a little bit of perspective. Let us say arbitrarily $6 an hour or 10 cents a minute. Since it would take 3 or 4 minutes to turn frozen orange juice into drinkable orange juice, it may well be that the covert set of values in the consumer equates the saving of 3 or 4 minutes to a saving of 30 or 40 ideal cents of his pleasure time. Pleasure time. To pay an extra 12 actual cents in order to save this 40 ideal cents seems fitting to his concept of value. Of course, he had been deprived of 10 actual cents. The extra comfort should have deprived him of no more than 2 of his actual cents. So the profit was extracted here for a disproportionate exploitation of the consumer's need to protect his pleasure time, rather than from an inadequate repayment to the worker for his actual labor. Such contradictions to this thesis as the spat of do-it-yourself hobbies or magazine articles about the problem of what to do with leisure are of too serious a nature to dismiss with the remark. It can be, however, suggested that the general hypotheses may not be contradicted. The man who is bored with his leisure, can you imagine such a concept? Being bored with your leisure? Sure time. Wait, I skipped ahead.
Depends on what you're doing with your time, I guess.
Yeah. The man who is bored with his leisure. Wait, I totally. Sorry, I skipped the page. Yeah. With his man who's bored with his leisure time, or so industrious as to work at handicrafts, can still resent inroads upon his leisure, which he had not chosen. Indeed, it might be argued that the tendency to be attracted to private labor-saving devices is greater in the man who doesn't know what to do with himself than what he is at home. And so he's setting up here a point of leisure time being a commodity, right? But what you constitute as leisure is still a form of labor or still a form of economic integer, right? But when you think about it, okay, like leisure time, what do people do in their leisure, right? Apart from like reading or some of the classical arts or whatever, well, they're still doing activities. They're still, playing video games, but there's a sort of economic activity, but what is being extracted? Like labor is only one element. So he's trying to save Marxism here from the analysis of like, okay, what happens when you have a virtual economy, when you have symbolic exchange on a very abstracted level, right? And this is pre-internet. Imagine if he was writing this during the internet, right? So, okay, what can the Marxist respond to? Well, okay, your labor is in a sense being extracted because you're paying attention to a piece of media, you're playing a video game, but there's something more there. Your attention itself, your consciousness itself is that commodity function, right? And so your attention is of vital importance. But anything to add, Prude?
I'm not too familiar with perhaps more contemporary Marxist literature, and perhaps some of our more well-read friends might answer this. Is there a monetary value that most Marxists have assigned perhaps to an hour's worth of our attention?
I think David Harvey talks about this a little bit.
Okay. I'm curious because like everything is about the attention economy, and by attention I don't mean just like our eyes and our ears, but also like mimetically speaking, because there is so much that comes into our mind and what we perceive as important or things that dominate our headspace. Like mind viruses are very real. And I'm curious because like if I'm a company, and like we already have data on this, right? Where like social media has been designed to be as addictive as humanly possible. Like Facebook has had numerous leaks and research put out there about making the algorithm to keep you back and going towards it. I mean, it's the same thing with like TikTok, or like why every other social media company like Facebook or Instagram has some kind of reels. I mean, Instagram's not by Facebook, but I mean, it's all like the reels thing, Instagram reels. It's sort of the same thing as TikTok. Like we're there. Or I mean, this was sort of a pithy kind of like offhand joke, but someone said, of course, we were going to start calling things slop the moment we called our timeline the social media feed. Which I mean, like, yeah, there's some wordplay there, but I think there's a greater deal of truth to behold in that sense, because obviously, when something gets burrowed into our skull and it alters our schema or our Weltanschauung, like our worldview and how we perceive the world around us, like that also changes market behavior. And it's like, I don't know if anyone's adequately, and maybe the Marxists have something. I mean, I'd like to read it if it's out there. You know, what they have to say about like an infectious behavioral changing form of attention. Because if my attention is beholden to a set of ideas, then what do we do? Right. You know, like also like notice our language is very hydrology based. We talk about pipelines. We talk about groundwater. We talk about upstream, downstream when it comes to culture. Oh, there was an alt-right pipeline. That was a very popular turn of phrase 10 years ago. Not that people were algorithmically, you know, being suppressed, because that's what there was their response to it. People wanted to hear their arguments, and people wanted to hear it because they can't ever accept the idea that things might be organically driven, at least on the right. Right. And so when it comes to like the attention economy, I'm very curious as to like what their, I guess, the Marxist understanding of like value and labor costs might be. Because to me, I think that remains, especially in a virtual economy, that remains the most important commodity I have to spend with, or currency, is my attention and how much mind I want to give something. Like I really don't like Twitter. Just becomes like a meme space for me. Like Substack has really been the place to go to lately, I think, for more interesting discourse or interesting places to go. Like for instance, our mutual friend wrote Arbogast wrote, he goes by Howie Doing on Twitter. He wrote a great article earlier today about how do we actually go after the left from like a legal standpoint and framework. And it was a really good piece. Like he gave like almost 40 citations on how this problem should be addressed. And I was like, this is really good stuff. Nevertheless, it's unfortunate that we don't really have that. But you know, I again, like attention's the most important thing. And for me, Substack's the place to spend my attention, because at least I get more fleshed out arguments.
Yeah. At any rate, if the hypothesis sketched here should prove to have any economic validity, the consequences are worth remarking. When the source of profit is extracted more and more at one removed or another, at one remove or another, it's kind of, this language kind of complicated. From the consumer's at-home working time, the consumer is paying a disproportionate amount for their desire to work a little less in his leisure time. Over the economy as a whole, this particular germ of profit may still be minuscule, but it is not at all trivial once one includes the expenses of the war economy, whose costs are paid by taxation, and an indirect extraction of leisure time from the general consumer, who then has noticeably less money in his leisure to pursue the sports, occupations, and amusements which will restore his body the energy he has spent in labor. To take the matter into the real complexity, the conflicting anxieties of living in a war and pleasure-oriented environment opens most men and women to a daily spat of psychic havoc whose damages can be repaired only by adequate exercise of a personal leisure appropriate to each, exactly that leisure which the war economy must impoverish. He was writing this at the cusp of the Vietnam War. But it's very funny. That is speaking of Paul Scholes, and he didn't invent it, but like that is the concept of the 4-hour life. Like you have roughly 4 hours to do whatever you want, like apart from like being a wagey, working, like, you know, getting up, driving to work, doing family things, cooking, sustenance. You have roughly like 4 hours each day or like on the weekend to like do what you want. And you know, people talk about like
you never feel
balance.
that pull of the weekend, do you, Gio?
Well, I don't know. It's like when people talk about this, it kind of feels very alienating, like, you know. But anyways, to, by this logic, the root of capitalist exploitation has shifted from the proletariat at work to the mass at leisure, who now may lose so much as 4 or 5 ideal hours of extra leisure a day. The old exploitation was vertical. The poor supported the rich. To this vertical exploitation must now be added the horizontal exploitation of the masses by the state and by monopoly, a secondary exploitation which is becoming more essential to a modern capitalist economy than the direct exploitation of the proletariat. If the origin of the secondary exploitation has come out of the proliferation of the machine with its consequent and relative reduction of the size of the proletariat and the amount of surplus value to be accumulated, the exploitation of mass leisure has been accelerated by the relative contradiction of the world market. Through the post-war years, prosperity has been maintained in America by invading the wage earner in his home. 19th century capitalism could still find its profit in the factory. When the worker was done, his body might be fatigued, but his mind could look for a diversion which was relatively free of the industry from which he worked. So soon, however, as the surplus labor of the proletariat comes to be replaced by the leisure value given up by the consumer, the real expropriator of the wage earner has to become the mass media. Or is the domination of leisure time is more significant to the health of the economy than the exploitation of the working time. The stability of the economy derives more from manipulating the psyche character of leisure than forcibly subjecting the working class to its productive role. So again, this is very compelling, right? I mean, you could almost see like Byung-Chul Han in here as well. But it's almost done, so let me continue reading. It is likely that the survival of capitalism is no longer possible without the creation of the consumer of a series of psychically disruptive needs which circle about such wants and emotions as the desire for excessive security, the alleviation of guilt, the lust for comfort and new commodity, and a consequent allegiance to the vast lie that of the essential health of the state and the economy, an elaborate fiction whose bewildered interplay of real and false detail must devil the mass into a progressively more imperfect perception of reality, and thus drive them closer to apathy, psychosis, and violence. 19th century capitalism exhausted the life of millions of workers. 20th century capitalism, now we could say 21st century capitalism, can well end by destroying the mind of a civilized man. If there is a future for the radical spirit, which often enough one can doubt, it can come only from a new revolutionary vision of society, its sicknesses, its strengths, its conflicts, contradictions, and radiations. its self-creating escapability to solve its invasions of the human justice. There is the root of social problem. An injustice had half corrected results in more than a new sense of injustice and suppressed violence in both parties, which is why revolutionary situations are meaningful and liberal situations are not. For liberal solutions end by compromising a society in the nausea of its past, and so bog the mass mind further into the institutionalization of social habits and methods from which one has faith, and from which one cannot extract the psychic marrow of culture upon which everyone's civilization must depend. If this revolutionary vision is to be captured by any of us in the work or works, one can guess that this time it will explore not nearly so far into the jungle of political economy, which Marx charted, and so open to a rapid development, but rather will engage the empty words, dead themes, and sentimental voids of the mass media, whose internalized contradictions twist and quarter us between the lust for of the economy, which radiates a greed to consume into us, which acts as the invisible salesman, sex is the invisible salesman, and the guilt of the economy, which must chill us with authority. Charities for cancer, and all reminder that the mass consumer is only one drunken furlough from the ordering discipline of a church, FBI, and war. So it's a bit of a Marxist spin, but he's saying two very integral things here. Well, a few integral things. One being the exploitation of leisure time through attention and through a system that can no longer authoritatively command you from a basis of culture, from the basis of a shared sense of civilization, but rather can only command your attention through spectacle, right? That informs your quote unquote values. And secondly, he says that it's very funny how he's saying liberal society has a way of habituating you, institutionalizing you with a sort of very empty notion of your past. But that doesn't really mean anything because it's always off to the next spectacle. It's always off to the next consumer good. It's always off to the next, I don't know, live stream. I know that's kind of hypocritical of us to say, but I thought like it was very prophetic for when he was writing this because all of the things he's talking about is really just accelerating. So, yeah.
I think one of the things to really consider, like one, I do find that this is somewhat eerily prophetic. Yeah, it has a Marxist twist on it, but I mean, it is true that there is the exploitative nature of how we spend our time on here. Like the boomer meme, like kids are always on their phone these days. I mean, while they happily soy jack over TV or whatever. Like, I mean, even these intergenerational conflicts are reflections in which our attention has been drove into sort of a cascade preference of like where we find our time or our values. And I mean, like everyone does this, not just like even the Marxist revolutionary is fighting for your time in the same way that Rush Limbaugh fought for your ears on the AM radio airwaves. I mean, there is this constant barrage of facts and attention. There's a reason why I've always called like the Twitter timeline, like you're in a void of screams, all screaming at 120 decibels, and you're hoping somehow you get heard. And, you know, that's not always the case, right? You know, some people, you know, can make really good content and they'll never get noticed. And others will make slop and get picked up and then complain that AI is being, you know, ruining their channel because somehow it's easier to make even more effective slop with a, you know, AI than it is to do it yourself. And you see that with channels that have like millions of subscribers. I think some of you know which ones I'm talking about. But like it is true fundamentally, much like what De Boer talks about in the Society of Spectacle, that as long as there's constant events that take place, the happenings. What do you mean? Gio's on the clock right now. Yeah, it's true. But
see those super chats, please. This is my job.
This is his job. This is his job. So I just have to work for a living. Yeah. But on the point, like what you were talking about, like the next live stream, the next Twitter thing, I wrote it for the Old Glory Club last week where it was like, it's really hard for anyone to have a sober take on anything because it doesn't matter for you to be sober. The platform encourages drunkenness. And I don't mean like literal, you know, lack of sobriety, but I mean, you can talk about something, right? And you can blah, 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 blah on whatever issue. And then 5 seconds later, a new piece of information will come out. And then like the guys that you were just bitching about will turn the table on you and be like, da, 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 this guy wasn't a plan truster, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, like, it's very easy to talk about in the Trump era, right? Or like while he's president. But it does illustrate a key point that like there is a desire to constantly keep the spectacle going because it's easier to do performative virtue signalings than there ever is going to be about, well, here's actually what's happened over the last 3 months. And this is why I think that, you know, when we want to assess how things are going, and maybe with this administration, I've told this to some of the MAGA people, it's like, if you were to do like a quarterly like breakdown, I think you would do a way better job at making your case for the admin than maybe like the constant shit flinging on Twitter. But of course, the platform encourages the shit flinging every like 30 seconds because that's what it's designed to do. And we engage in a spectacle of whatever fits our values or our performances. And others do it for the love of the game. Like, you know, I don't know if she makes any money off of this, but I'm going to use Emily Yukis as an example. Like, through a mix of, I guess, AI stuff and her own handiwork, she created like a 4.5 minute little like pilot episode of the Will Stancil show. Not that I encourage certain harassment that may or may not like get you potentially legally charged with anything. I think it's fair use and satire. He is a public individual, but I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
Kind of reminded me of that film Body. That was.
It reminded me of some really early 2000s adult animation, is what it reminded me of.
Oh yeah, but like the setup, but yeah, it did remind you of like Super Jail or.
That was the first thing I thought of. I was like, this is right wing Super Jail. Which I was totally okay with. I was like,
next episode 2, Will Stancil abducted by aliens, illegal aliens.
But like, I mean, there's a difference where like that's a piece, like, but that's an ongoing thing, and it, like, imagine having to explain to someone who's not on Twitter or Blue Sky that some random woman who hosts a far right podcast or is a co-host of a far right podcast is making an AI.
Was a foundational animator on Newgrounds.
Yeah, like an animator has spent her time making a TV plot animated cartoon of a liberal progressive figure who lost an election. Like, and it's become such a meme that hundreds of thousands of people have seen it. Like, it's a hard thing to explain to anyone who's not on the platform, right? Like, imagine the hundreds of hours of lore that you would have to explain of yourself, Gio, to explain what you do for a living.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, that's an impressive thing to consider, just an amount of time, right? And like, we've already kind of like, you know, the sunk cost fallacy, if you want to go that far, right? Like, you know, you've spent so much years of your life on it, you might as well keep doing it. Why move on when I make money from doing this, et cetera, et cetera. But it's true because now it's coupled with like, I think Burden coined this term, but like social emotional patronage. Like, if you're a good boy, you get good boy points. And by good boy points, we mean like you're a good libtard, right? Like, or if you're on Twitter and you say the right thing with a certain crowd, if you're like, hashtag traditional neighborhood development, you know, catch my drift. And they're like, oh, all the edits, all the spinny wheels, all the like Peter X Groiper edits coming your way, sir. Thank you. Would you like a entrance to the group chat, sir? And I'm not saying this to single anybody out. I'm simply using this as an example. But it comes with the social emotional patronage of like, ooh, that feels good. Ooh, if I participate in the spectacle, if I become the monkey with the symbols, then I too get a seat at the table of feeling like a good boy.
It's a very powerful temptation, though.
It's an incredibly powerful one because there's nothing that's existed like it before. Where where like, you know, who was it? Warhol that said like in the future everyone will be famous for 15 minutes, or maybe it was McLuhan, one of the two. And but like now you can be famous for 1 or 2 minutes, and then you can be joining in on the spectacle. Like, on Twitter today, I've had like 20 different Howling Mutant parody accounts follow me. With all
Howling Mutant now in Pog form.
Yeah.
Speaking
Howling
of
Mutant replaced by a dolphin. Howling Mutant replaced with Paul. You know, so now it's like Castle Freak Definer. It's wild. Or like Howling Homo, which is like the Howling Mutant.
I think he follows me
Tim
too.
Waltz's face on it. But like, again, this is a spectacle that we're all participatory members in.
Howling Labubu.
Oh, so true. I bet you that's on there. I'm gonna go hold on.
That was like when I remixed the Death in June song, Fall Apart, where it's like for our Howling Mutants. Like, it was I was predicting the rise of like Do you remember like Fisher King Groypers?
Oh,
That was like
he got
that
so
was a
pissed
fun
about
time.
that.
Yeah, I love Fisher King.
I'm happy to be mutuals with him.
He's a good guy. You know what's funny? People accuse him of being like, the memes of like, water is wet, and it's like, no, but if you actually listen to what Fisher King is writing about, it's like there is a lot of very careful thought there. Maybe because he's a lawyer, so he's got that cadence that he makes like very good revelations on politics and society seem very simple and very like matter of fact. He's got that gift, and I think like people like they meme on him for it, but there's something there, No, but what's interesting is that Norman Mailer was. I mean, even myself, man. Like whenever I try to talk about things that are very meaningful to me, but then I talk about political slop. I mean, obviously, what gets more traction, right? Like, I mean, unless you want to like, maybe I should master the art of clickbaiting. Like I remember Spum Donor, he the King of the Hill review episode, he had like the thumbnail that said "cuck of the woke." Like that was like brilliant. That was brilliant because he knew like the reaction he was gonna get from different people. It's calling this cool, but it's very funny that Norman Mailer was very prescient in discussing how capital itself will virtualize. I know it's a Marxist framework, and you could say that in a way, like even Zizek talks about this, the sort of like inability, not inability, but rather like the frustration of Marxism in the 21st century dealing with this sort of like virtualization. Like the best, I mean, ironically enough, even though a lot of them hate him, but Baudrillard, I'm going to talk about this with Michael Paul. Like Baudrillard actually is the best expression of sort of like a virtualized internet-based like 21st century version of Marxism. If you read like Symbolic Exchange, right? Or I think like there's obviously what Norman Mailer is getting at is a form of psychopower, where because there was this great essay actually. I was reading this. I was citing it in the article I'm writing. You know that guy in the UK? He was a doctor, but then he became a blogger, Bruce Charlton.
Yeah.
He wrote this article about why people are so moralistic in the absence of like a grand moral meta narrative, and he was talking about how there was sort of like an inability of various state apparatuses. I mean, there still is a reality. I mean, there's a lot of like brutal repression in terms of speech, but in terms of like a coherent narrative on the function of a population on a very steep spiritual and cultural level. In the absence of that, where people can sort of like pick and choose whatever they want in terms of their beliefs, you have to have a very, like, for lack of a better term, repressive tolerance, which I believe it was like a another British author, Dalrymple. I believe he had an article in one of his books called Repressive Tolerance or something like that. So in a way, like because you have what I was talking about with our good friend Zoomer Schopenhauer, because you have a sandbox-like existence in postmodernity in the internet age, where you can pick and choose your own adventure, you can pick and choose your own beliefs, you can pick and choose your own slop, you can pick and choose to rot if you want, right? People are not necessarily going to be motivated to do things that are very exciting, being freed of the burden of a lot of necessities of life, the way that our ancestors were not. Instead, people choose to do things that are unindustrious or actually destroy value rather than create value. So because of that, because you don't have a coherent religion, a coherent culture, a coherent sense of who you are as a citizen, now you have to have basically tolerance enforced, or a public morality that is foisted upon you in a very weird and lurid way. Repressive tolerance is Marcuse. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah. No, but in a way, like this relates to the mass media and the attention economy, or what I've termed in this stream the vibes-based economy, because the way that real material economic integers are affected by the greater vibes of like there's going to be a recession, there's going to be this, Donald Trump says this. There really is a translation of meta concepts that are that are like on the mimetic plane of this collective noosphere of the internet, that and the mass media, that is then picked up on and translates into real world material consequences in a variety of ways. I mean, political radicalization, I think, is the most simple way of expressing it. But in terms of cultural ideas, even outside of politics, there is a sense in which the attention economy is of vital importance, right? A corporation needs to get your attention. A streamer needs to get your attention. But attention translates into something that's kind of very funny. Like when you're a content creator, I know I hate that term, but like when you're a content creator, you don't really think about it in a way. You want people to look at you, listen to you, to donate money. Please see those super chats. I saw some of our donors needing super chats. Thank you. We'll read your questions. Please donate. You know, we want you to
And
have.
you snapped just like that to the notification. The things take your attention.
It's sort of like
curious. Sorry,
I know. Yeah, bro. It's sort of like Gordon White. If you've ever watched the podcast Rune Soup, where he
I haven't.
Well, it's fascinating, like a call podcast, and you know he used to work for the Discovery Channel, but he always like has these courses on magic and stuff, and so like midway through a conversation, he'll reference the course you can get on Patreon. I'm like, why can't I do that? I should have courses like Academic Agency, you know, or like his courses, or like Justin Murphy.
A course on art history.
Yeah, no, that's what Justin Murphy told me years ago. I should do this. I wanted to do a course on the Red Book, but maybe a year or two from now, because that would be like a huge time investment. But anyways, so
when is your current book gonna get published?
Matthew said he's making headroads, but he just has to focus on this gallery, and then he'll go back to it.
So it's just purely now in editing.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I have to edit stuff to make it more like current, but like I don't know, who cares, right? No, because if you try to make things current, it's going to date it, right? But I mean, it is kind of dated. A lot of it is not dated, but like a lot of the references are from the 2010s, but then a lot of the references go beyond.
You're a millennial man. I think that's okay.
Yeah. But the point being is that we don't really think about it. Like when I put something out there, right? Then maybe it's just me, but like I want people to get something out of it, obviously. But then the problem is that you're sort of like so invested in the numbers trending downward that you're like, okay, why do I want people to pay attention to me? Because in a lot of cases, especially on Twitter, there's been years where I don't want people to pay attention to me. Where like I've had a viral tweet where I delete it because I don't want people.
Yeah, you don't want that heat.
Yeah, exactly. But when you tweet about something that is meaningful, that you find to be profound, maybe you'll have like a few dedicated people. But the problem is that, you know, you're not really thinking about the sort of the authentic engagement of person to person, of like why you're doing this. Because I've often asked myself in recent years why I do this, right? And I think like
perfectly
you can
valid
come up
question.
Right, but you know, you could come up with any high-minded answer you want, and at the end of the day, you want people to get out that you know you've really toiled on your own education, your own ability to both speak and to paint and to do different things, to write. Although my writing is kind of spotty, so you know whatever. But you want to do something meaningful, but you're also caught in this cycle of wanting attention and wanting numbers going up on a green line. Because that translates into monetary gain, that translates into your stature as a serious figure. But when you are consumed by that, you're still expropriating something of value, but it's something very cheap and easy. It's not like, you know, the way I could exploit someone's labor value is if I did have a course and you're sitting there with me and I'm on a Zoom call or whatever, on a Discord call, and you know you are doing a bit of labor, but that labor itself is a form of leisure, so you don't really think of it that way, right? There's a way to exploit someone's labor as a business person, right, which is valid and whatever. But when you're exploiting people's attention and you're sort of like jerking their chain and you're offering clickbait, I don't know, it's a way of like you are in a sense a con man, but you're an nth degree abstracted from a usual confidence grifter or con man. And don't get me wrong, a lot of very popular streamers, that's what they are. They're confidence men. They're confidence grifters. You know, like we can talk mad smack about Hassan Piker or Destiny, or even on the right, we can talk about like mad smack about Asmongold or whoever, but at the end of the day, like there's a reason why they've tapped into a market. And a lot of people, you know, they get in on the ground floor and then they flounder, like all those early YouTubers, right? Like DSP or Rich of Review Tech DSA or like Boogie. A lot of these like slobs who have no ability or talent, who just basically got millions of views because they were the first person to do it. What happens after when there's other people that can do it in a way more sophisticated, attention grabbing and skillful way than you can? You either adopt with the times, although the 3 lolcows I mentioned, they have not done that, or you fade away into oblivion, right? I mean, it's a bit different when you're doing like intellectual work. I think like there's a way to grift on intellectual work. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that do it. But I think that when you're doing something that's very popular for a time and then you're looking back, it's like, you know what I mean? It's a very vicious cycle. In a way, it's even more vicious than the normal hard guns and butter economy, as they called it in the 60s, the guns and butter metric, right? And it's a very vicious cycle. But why is it that becomes the metric? Because we live in the age of a sort of disembodiedness or a disengagement from physical concerns, albeit temporarily, that necessitates the exploitation of consciousness rather than the physical brute exploitation of the body. Because it's very easy to exploit the body in any sort of either socialistic or capitalistic system. But it's kind of more a little bit difficult to exploit the mind. Although, I don't know, nowadays I question that though. Like it's kind of very easy to exploit the mind. So
I think the mind is easier to exploit than the body, because a lot of people will turn down like a labor job or something like. So for instance, like where I work, there is a manufacturing component to it. I do not work on the factory floor. But like today is a Tuesday, and that means my regular management call with sales and the floor manager. And the floor manager is a woman, and she's talking about the struggles to hire people. And of course, I know that the pay is kind of close to dog shit. Actually, it is dog shit pay. But like, and so I think people kind of assign monetary value different in a way that they don't assign monetary value to time. Or, for instance, we can assign monetary value to Twitter, right? Because like you get paid to tweet. If you pay for the basic bitch tier on X.com, you get access to monetization. Which are you monetized on Twitter, Gio?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that I make anything off.
Oh, neither do I. But I mean, like full disclosure, Gio and I are both monetized on Twitter. It occasionally pays for gas. It's gas money is how I treat it, which is nice.
Paid for my tube of Viridian Red. Venetian Red recently. Yeah, that's about it.
Now, okay, yeah. Like for me, it'll pay for like maybe 1 or 2 tanks of gas. Like that's about it. But like still, right? Like that's you can assign monetary value to it. Like for me, like I got into this because like the people who I'm now mutuals with, I was like listening to them talk, and I was like, oh, I could do this because I've always been a person in polite liberal company to explain a conservative point of view. And 5 years later, here we are. But like, that's sort of just par for the course, right? You know, that's life. We do assign it. So I think it's easier nowadays I think people are more apprehensive with what they do with their body, because in a lot of ways, like we look at the world around us and we're like, ooh, that's a lot of labor. Oh, that's backbreaking, or oh, that's difficult. And we also have a different evaluation for it, because America has been thoroughly deindustrialized. And unless you do work with your hands, either in a trade, which I mean, it's still, I don't want to say it's a majority, but like it's a very specific subset in culture. Like you're not going to, you're not going to look at that kind of life as something that you want to be part of. You know, no one wants to be the idiot from Stan Rogers, as much as we kind of idealize the hardworking, even the term working class American is such a politically ambiguous term depending on who's saying it, because So many of our industries now are heavily unionized, are dealing with a lot of layover or layoffs and, offshoring overseas. The attempts to reindustrialize is not only a national security concern, but like it is a cultural, political class issue. And then all of a sudden, like you have to ask yourself, well, why are we talking about these things? I mean, even prior to like what you would call like the vibes based. I mean, even the economy has always been vibes based because what do we measure? We measure consumer confidence. We measure every like 6 months, like how registered voters feel about the direction of the country. Because at the end of the day, in a democratic based system, everything is predicated on vibes. Like this is why libertarian Cato Institute dumbasses like that Alex Norwitesh guy are absolute scum. Because they're like, aren't the numbers so great? And it's like, dude, half the people I know are ready to turn into like revolutionary communists or national socialists because they don't see a way for them to achieve the middle class lifestyle of even their parents. Like, what are you going to do there, Alex? Like,
yeah, it really is a life metaphor of Linkola, but it applied to culture and the economy. Yeah.
Like you can't tell me that like things are on paper fine because like models are bullshit, right? Like you can frame any parameter to an economic model that says like Medicare for all will solve the national debt crisis. You can make that argument. It's not a good one. But like you could, and everyone would know that like the model is BS and it doesn't work very well. And so the same thing gets played out here in this instance. We're like, well, everything doesn't feel right, but we want short-term good feeling solutions. This is why in a lot of like, there are things that this administration has done that are net good positives for the country. But it's why on Twitter or whatever, it feels like such a vibe-based thing because now all of a sudden, like the mass media of your own subculture has been co-opted by the admin.
Trump is a vibes-based president.
Trump is the content president.
Yeah.
I mean, not just vibes. Like he's the embodiment of a 1980s like power suit capitalist vibe that doesn't really exist.
But that's what he was. He was like
no, I'm saying that's what he was. But like like Morgoth had this great essay about this because like Trump is the last person. Don't shit on my canvas and tell me it's Rembrandt. Yeah, absolutely. I like that one.
Shoes and tell me it's raining.
Yeah, don't piss on my shoes and tell me it's raining. That's a great one. I have said I like to tell people like I was born at night, but not last night. Like, I'm not stupid. I think I stole that one from Semiagog. He's like, I was born at night, but not last night. And I'm like, so true, Mr. Elf King.
Semiagog had a recent. His poetry was featured along a visual artist recently.
Oh, really?
And I told Semi that we should collaborate. But
yeah. So I mean, like, you have a content presidency. I think they got hit with copyright strike, but they did a whole like DHS posted that meme where it was like what it would feel like if all the criminal illegals or all the illegals got deported.
It was Pokemon.
And it had Gio Scotti was in it. Moon Man was in it. Trump was in it. The Trump Pizza Hut commercial was in it where he's eating pizza backwards. Like it was all there. Along with several other things that we would see from.
I think that was 80s. The incisor pizza where it's like they had cheese in the crust.
Yeah, the cheese in the crust. And it
was pretty good. Me and my cousin used to get that all the time.
I like stuffed cheesy. There's your hot take for the day. I think that's
Papa
good.
John's because we're doing it better.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Well, I'll allude to.
They should. I hope they pay that guy to do promotion. That
I hope so. Like someone was talking about Papa John's the other day.
Like
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say he looks like the perfect like mid '90s, early 2000s. Like I'm a teen that works at the pizzeria type of vibe. He
really does.
But you were saying, Prue?
No, so like, I was listening to a conversation the other day, and someone had brought up Papa John's. And they were talking about like the John Schlatter controversy, and I like screen capped this like comment from it because it was like it said Papa John's, real ingredients, real inwards, Papa John. And I don't know why. I guess it was just like the randomness of that comment where I laughed solid for 5 minutes. Like I could not stop laughing. Because I kept repeating it to myself. I was like, real ingredients, real
but it's like I love it when schizos like they gravitate towards vulgarity. Like Wesley Willis used to like have all those lyrics, or like Francis C. Deck used to say the most like absurd things, or like Hollywood God. If you've ever followed Hollywood God from PPP, he like used his original YouTube channels were called Hollywood Grape and Come On. Like, I don't know why, but like there is something there where the schizophrenic has this ability to confront a media apparatus with utter vulgarity and indifference, because there's a sort of like, well, you know why Wesley Willis used to write all those lyrics? Because he said that like the demon in his head would be warded off by using this incredible vulgarity. Like, if you ever looked up the Casper song by Wesley Willis, like, you'll know like what I mean. There is, but anyways, yeah, go ahead, Prude. That was, oh yeah, Prude's muted. No, but so yeah, like that's, oh yeah, go ahead, Prude. Go ahead.
No, go on.
No, what was I mentioned Papa John's? No, I was gonna say like that video was very like, oh man, I'm gonna get in so much trouble for saying this with people, but like that was, I think, really indicative of the way that like slop, like my base slop can be marketed back to me by a mainstream political party, where it's like you have Top Gun next to Gio Scotti, next to Moon Man.
Well, didn't you notice that like some Democrat senator did the green line meme? And it's very strange because like the dominant culture in any other media platform aside from Twitter is overwhelmingly left wing.
Right.
Like the newest Paul Thomas Anderson movie is like former like
Antifa the movie.
It's Antifa the movie. Like, I gotta defend my like ethnically mixed race child from like the evil Christian nationalists that, and I gotta do like attacks on like immigration facilities because this movie is a call to action. And it's just like, okay, but like that's, even if you don't like it or even if it makes any money, hell if I know if it will.
Yeah, the left
but
has
like
their own slop sphere.
It's
Yeah,
the dominant. It's the dominant culture outside of things. Like Disney's still pushing the gender shit on children's cartoons. Like it's the woke never got put away. Like just one tiny medium, and it's not even a tiny medium, but in comparison to viewership, yes, it is. One tiny medium allows you to say the N-word. And then the rest of them want to like castrate your kids and like ethnically cleanse you. Like if like James Gunn had the whole Peacemaker thing, and I guess like it's in some alternate like America where like the fascists won World War II, and like
where the like, chick is like
this, and it's this like nice idyllic white like neighborhood, and they're like, well, we're just gonna go kill them all and electrocute them in the pool party, and it's just like. Oh, cool. So like killing white families and children, like, oh, but they're bad. Wonder because they're Nazis, and it's just like the dominant culture of Antifa from like 2016, where like there was the whole Punch a Nazi song and everything. Like that's your dominant culture.
That Richard Spencer clip.
Yeah, like that's the dominant. That is the.
That was pretty keynote though. That was
Twitter.
Pretty.
It's a
like Richard Spencer was trying to like explain the frog.
Explain Pepe.
Yeah, and then like the guy came and punched him. Like, not that I endorse that, but like it's I'm not a big. I'm not a big fan of Richard Spencer, but no, I don't endorse like him getting punched, obviously. But like, but it was funny. Like, I wonder if like James Gunn, like, was it a pool party?
I mean, there was a bunch of people in the pool. I just saw the clip going around, which again, I don't have the full context, but again, for this all being vibes based, I'm like, well, morally, you know, like this is like the American, like the tweet about American Twitter, where is like Luffy would punch Israel and J.K. Rowling and all the other people who called me the F slur in high school. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, like you and I might say, well, like Jesus tells us to love our enemies or to like walk the extra mile, and they're like, well, did you know that like my favorite character from Steven Universe has trans rights? And it's like, okay, at least what I believe in is real. Like what the, you know?
No, you know what's funny? I remember Nightmare Vision. He kind of like chastised me a bit because like he said it was an Arnie Cell opinion, but it's kind of true. Where like, was it Ayatollah? Which I forget which Ayatollah, or it may have been Ahmadinejad that said like.
I think it was Ahmadinejad who had. I think he had made the joke after Khamenei died, or not Khamenei. Soleimani was killed.
Yeah.
And they says, well, what can we do? We can't kill American heroes. It's Spider-Man.
We can't kill Superman. Yeah.
SpongeBob or whatever. And
yeah.
I was like, but I mean, that's,
No,
I'm
it's
like,
true.
well, I'm like,
Yeah.
partially that's true.
No,
Like,
because he said like in the ancient world, you used to like deface idols and used to like,
you would take the enemy's idol and prostrate the idol face down before your own temple.
yeah, like Muhammad in Mecca. Was it in Mecca? Yeah, yeah.
Taking down
But,
the Kaaba or whatever and the
yeah.
idols in there. And it's just like, but that
But we can't defeat America because we can't, we can't deface Superman. Like how that's
well,
impossible.
but I think the left realizes that even that's not true. Well, because
Yeah.
I had made this observation shortly after like the attempted Trump assassination in Butler over a year ago, was that isn't it wild that on the right we have, I mean, you can say what you will about Trump, but like Trump is for better or for worse like the man of the hour, like the
Yeah.
great man of American history right now. Isn't it? I find it just an interesting observation that like for the right we have these men of history, but like on the left, like they're so disembodied, and there's been a great deal of space. Like, sure, there's Hassan, sure, there are like Democrats that are or progressives, but like
Well,
we
they
don't
do
have
have
a
their great men
there's
of
no left
history as
wing, there's no
well.
Robespierre on the left right now. Could be
Oh,
wrong.
yeah,
I don't
true,
want there to be a
true.
Robespierre on the left, and if there's going to be a Robespierre on the left, I hope we like arrest him and jail him before he gets to like behead anybody and has his like committee of safety. But
Well, they
like,
have they have like Luigi Mancioni.
oh sure, like a one-off
Yeah.
guy, but he's not like the leader of a like organized political faction that has overthrown anything yet. But I mean, like even then, these comparisons kind of fall weak because I think our times are relatively unprecedented.
Right.
In the sense that like, but the left's heroes are either like they're all achieved by judicial fiat or they become historically revisionist figures of history like MLK.
James
Rosa Parks
Comey.
was clearly planned with like various civil rights groups to make this one work because they weren't going to take like the single like pregnant black lady who did this like 6 months prior for obvious optical reasons.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, the pregnant.
And
black,
so it's
yeah.
like, but nowadays, because fiction has been, and I mean, fiction and mythology has always been the preference for the way in which we disseminate and socialize morality in the absence of like an official state religion. But like the state religion of progressivism tells us that like all superheroes are on my side. The nihilism of like Rick Sanchez tells me that like in the long run, it's okay to punch that conservative. It's okay because ContraPoints told me that I don't have to go to Thanksgiving this year because my uncle watches Fox News. And so it doesn't require necessarily like a great man because media nowadays has become so fractal and so disseminated and democratized that if you're not part of one niche fandom, it doesn't really matter because like the overarching moral consensus gives that social emotional patronage via spectacle that's like, well, yeah, like my favorite speedrunner is a tranny or says trans rights because they don't want to be eaten alive because they might find these people to be freaks, right? Like the coercion of having your life ruined is still very much present. Whereas on the right, like I can at least look towards actual like men of history or a point of what exists, which is why I think on the left realizes, oh, we could actually like kill these guys. Whereas on the right, it's like, well, if I did that, my life's over. But secondly, even if I did do that, there's more of them than me in the sense of like, there's a million little bread tubers. There's a million little like Hassan wannabes.
Yeah.
There aren't any like Charlie Kirks. You know,
Maybe Destiny, but that's about it.
But I mean, like Destiny's not going to go out.
No, but he's not even the
Destiny will never
like,
go to like Liberty University. Like Steve Benelli or Hassan Piker will never go to like Liberty University or Hillsdale College to argue with conservative students.
He tried to do that once after Charlie's death, but like it was sort of like a weird, lurid, attention grabbing spectacle.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it's just like I feel like in a way a lot of these like think piece writers in the Atlantic or the New Yorker, they're kind of correct in the sense of like Trump is operating off of a very like 19th century politics model of the spectacle in terms of a like one political man, whereas like the political left, they are operating off of a, up until recent years with all of this like politically motivated terrorism, they are operating off of a 21st century, for lack of a better term, model of power and diffusion of ideas that is very I mean, the word stochastic is so
I
abused,
think
but like,
I think that you're right there, Gio, because like I think the left, in part because they've been the monoculture, they've been able to adapt like for the market and everything like that.
yeah,
Like they've been able to successfully adapt maybe an ideology or a socialization method for the 21st century where the right clearly hasn't.
yeah, exactly. But then when the right does it, I think like in terms of the authenticity of, for example, like what the original Frog Twitter was, to the point where you have like the DHS account sharing this like very lurid video of, for lack of a better term, like your slop is being given back to you with like Geo Scotty and Top Gun and Moon Man. And like, obviously, the millennial that was like putting that edit out there, he knew. I know the woke more correct, but it is kind of true. Like, they know the references. But whether that translates into like actual, like radical, like far right politics is yet to be really realized, because you are placating people by giving them their memes. And I do like, I know like I'm being cynical and I'm being a black pillar, but there is a sense in which you should question, okay, like if an apparatus of power is giving me my memes back to me in the absence of a lot of the stated policy goals of the Trump administration, or rather the sort of the usual frustrations of the managerial state in a place like America, then you should really be questioning, like, okay, is it just a vibes based negotiation here between the sort of symbolic exchange of my mimetic complex and an avenue of political power that can do a very simple, in the grand scheme of things, a very simple, albeit controversial gesture, but there still is that political infrastructure in place that works against the meat and potatoes goals of like what these meme edits represent.
Yeah, like
You know,
it has a potentially very pacifying power.
yes, and I think like that's also relates to Norman Mailer's essay about the white by POC, let's
Yeah.
call it for YouTube, the hipster that he was writing about in the 50s, which we'll get to. We'll read some passages from. But I think like but outside of just politics, but it's so hard to really talk about pure culture because politics has subsumed this role of being the catalyst of all culture. But I think like even in terms of pure culture, why is it that views and attention and spectacle is the root source of what is being expropriated and extracted from people rather than just physical labor? I don't think Mr. Beast or whoever really thinks about that. They just think, well, okay, line goes up. We have this video where we're blowing up a few buses, or we're throwing buses into school buses into a pit and blowing them up, or like whatever. But you're not really thinking about, okay, like what is the necessity of this thing, right? And no, Mr. Beast or whoever can abstract it by saying, well, we're building wells in Africa, or we're doing this charity, but that's not really the stated goal. That's only the sort of like morality car wash of it.
Yeah.
I was actually debating this in your chat, Prude, although it was very rudely, counter signaled. But I was talking about mafia films and Goodfellas and Sopranos.
And by this, he means Gio and Dimes disagreed on something.
Well, yeah, me and B and Dimes, but like I was told that it was me and Dimes. I was told that I was wrong and that I didn't have adequate media literacy. Saying an Italian does not have media literacy over mafia films is no, but saying an Italian does not have media literacy over mafia films is quite a stretch. But I was saying that like Henry Hill in Goodfellas, he kind of was correct about like the corruption of the American. I mean, yeah, you spice your language, but like he is in a sense correct about like the corruption of the American dream, about like all these working people, they're suckers and they're pigs and they're like wages stuck in a cage filled with rage. But then at the very end, Henry Hill has to go into the world of samsara and become an average working American stiff. And he becomes this thing that he hates because he betrays his mafia roots, because he saw like the corruption in it. And in a way, like the Italian experience in America in the 20th century, in the 19th to 20th century, is very interesting because you have films, for example, A Bronx Tale, that really dramatize this dramatic tension between the Italian American wanting to be a product of the American dream, wanting to be a hardworking stiff that gets by because he has this sense of nationalistic pride, like Robert De Niro's character in A Bronx Tale. Whereas opposed to the mafia boss, who is this very like parasitic, exploitative element of Italian American society, who gets away off of exploitation and who presents himself as sort of like this working class savior, like Henry Hill says at the beginning of Goodfellas, we're just basically the police for wise guys. But really, you're not. You're exploiting people. And you're doing things on the cheap, and you're like pouring all this scorn on the working man because you're in this position where you can get by. But then, of course, what happens is that the American way of life quickly catches up to this. And then they get RICO'd into oblivion, and they have to become more sophisticated in their crimes. And the Italian mafia, in America at least, is really like a shell of its former self. And so you have this constant tension of like, as an Italian American or like Italian in North America, I have to be like this patriotic American. I go to work every day and I work hard because that's what was the promise that my parents gave me when they immigrated here. But then you also have this like seedy underbelly that basically spits upon those values and says, well, actually, you're a sucker. And that America's run by a very diverse array of different mafias that have their own interests. And they're kind of both correct. That's the thing of it. They're kind of like both correct. America, like even like Tony Soprano, he'll like revert to his own like ethnic sort of like hillbilly identification with the old country, where he's like, all the Carnegies and all the Rockefellers, they were crooks and murderers too, but they built this country, so they get to do it, right? It's like kind of, they're not that I'm endorsing, but like they're kind of like correct that they were crooks and murderers, but they did build this country, and you're like this freeloader. And you're this nihilistic
great
parasite.
Scene from The Good Shepherd where Matt Damon just tells De Niro, he's just like, we have the United States of America. The rest of you are just visiting. Which is like,
he's like, you know what? We got the church and our culture.
We got the church. Even the blacks got their music. Like
the Irish got their poetry. What do you got, Mr. So-and-so? We have America. And all of you people are just visitors.
It goes so hard. I love that line. I mean, it's a good movie. It's worth watching. It's an early, about the CIA.
Yeah.
It's a good film. But yeah.
But the thing is, though, the problem is like when you've sort of like given up on that mandate, that's when a lot of other, various and very diverse ethnic interests that have landed on American or Canadian or whoever shores, they can then say, well, okay, you.
Because they can assert themselves because there's still a connection. And I mean, it's also the argument for why like assimilation is impossible, because it's like, how is like, even if we didn't have the numbers, right, that like of the millions that are coming in, like even if you had 5, right, how are 5 Sanjays going to immigrate to the Canadian way of life when they can listen to a podcast in their own language while they drive Uber, or
they live in an ethnic area where it's only,
or they live in an ethnic area, or well, I mean, that house happened here in America too. There's still Italy and stuff, but I mean, not even that. Just also, how does it work when there's no way to actually sever yourself from the old country?
No, but see, Italian Americans, even more than Italian Canadians, have this very like, in a weird way, like schizophrenic but sort of quaint and endearing thing where it's like they didn't really assimilate. Like there is, the problems with the Italian mafia, but at the one end, they didn't really assimilate in the sense that they kept their own traditions and cultures, but they have this like very strong identification with American patriotism. Like they're like, I'm an American, like I love America, but I'm an Italian, I make a sandwich, even though like the ingredients and the methods that they've used are sort of like kind of antiquated relative to what's happening in Italy right now. And so there is like that cultural divide, but at the same time, like there's sort of like a little bit less of a cultural divide than there is with the sort of like, for example, the PSYOP that Ireland went through, where like Irish Americans trying to embrace their culture was like seen as like stupid and hillbilly-ish and not very good. Whereas like, I guess in Italy it's a bit different, but in
there's also
America,
the connotation of America's anti-Catholicism,
yeah,
and
that's
then of
another thing
course
too.
the Civil War, and then of
Yeah,
course even earlier with like the Mexican American War and the Order of St. Patrick and all that included. Like it's
yeah.
a very different experience, and compared to say like post Civil War immigration from Italy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, but that's what I mean. That's why like the Italian American's a bundle of contradictions in the sense of like this endearing patriotism and this pro-American attitude, but at the same time, like, yeah, I'm still, I'm kind of a Catholic, and I still, I got the tomatoes in the back, and it's this very like, it's a very weird thing relative to other immigrants that have either assimilated or have kept into their enclaves on American soil, and but anyways, in Canada, it's different because a lot of Italian immigrants to Canada, like, I mean, Florida Sox is at least partially correct. Like, we kind of didn't assimilate. We kind of like, Trudeau Senior let us in, and they're like, that's why I still got to vote Liberal. And it's like, I know so many people, like so many older Italians who are like that. I'm like, but yeah, but like you're
Yeah, I
like
mean
kind of,
that is the core thesis of Garrett Jones's book, The Cultural Transplant.
yeah,
Like no one actually assimilates,
yeah,
only
yeah,
partially, and if
yeah,
anything, they also transform the host country.
yeah. Yeah, but I think like but the reason I bring this up is because you kind of do have like, even to this day you do have like sort of like drop zones of the economy where people can, either have a parasitic relationship or a very like alternative relationship to more mainstream means of production and labor and so on and so forth. And it's kind of like, let's say like a Twitch streamer is like a mafioso, but like there's obviously something there, and the way that economic activities become virtualized is something that is in the grand scheme of things like a relatively new experience, maybe not even like 20 years old. It used to be back in the day that on the internet they called you an e-beggar, but because the internet was seen as like this wholly separate thing from everyday life.
Yeah.
But now it's like everybody does it now. Like whole vast economies are reliant upon the online world in such a variety of different ways, and it really questions our assumption about the role of online life and so on and so forth. But also like on a very existential level, like who you are as a person is the sort of like mediaized environment that you choose to be engaged in, or rather the media environment that was foisted upon you, and a lot of people don't know any better, right? I mean, you could sit down and think about like all the media that you consume, but the average person doesn't do that, to the point where it's like, okay, do you even derive enjoyment from certain things? Maybe like momentarily. Like it's, I can understand like it's very fun to see like a Mr. Beast video where he's like blowing up a bus in a pit, but then it's like, okay, why am I watching this, But a lot of people don't have that impulse. And I know that's kind of like an elitist point, but you do have to question like why attention itself has become the metric even over and above bodily economic expropriation. And there's no good answer. I mean, maybe there is, but
Maybe. I think that a lot of the I think the political formula of the 21st century has yet to truly be discovered,
right.
or at least invented. But it will be built out of the scraps of, I think, a lot of the postmodernist, post-structuralist stuff that like early NRX became that
Yeah.
came, at least that they worked off of.
Yeah. Let's move on to the hipster.
Yeah, let's read a little bit of it, and then head to super chats. We're already at 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. Time flies.
It
See the
kinda did.
supers. You're being involved in this process of attention economy expropriation, and I aim to expropriate your super chats in exchange for reading your comments and questions and inquiries. So Wow, what a sales pitch. Listen, at least I'm being honest with you folks. But okay, this is from 1957. The white, I'm not going to say the word for YouTube.
The white gamer word.
The white gamer word. Our search for the rebels of the generation led us to the hipster. The hipster is an enfant terrible, turned inside out. See, he's an inwardly, a sort of radical figure that transforms and transfixes and sort of transvaluates himself. In character with his time, he is trying to get back at the conformists by lying low. You can't interview a hipster because his main goal is to keep out of society, which he thinks is trying to make everyone over in his own image. Well, actually, Norman Mailer was kind of wrong. Hipsters are being interviewed, countercultural hipsters are being interviewed every single day. He takes weed because it supplies him with experiences that can't be shared with squares. He may affect a broad-brimmed hat or a zoot suit, but usually he prefers to skulk unmarked. The hipster may be a jazz musician. He is rarely an artist, almost never a writer. He may earn his living as a petty criminal, a hobo, a carnival roundabout, or a freelance moving man in Greenwich Village, or he may be a streamer. I just added that one. But some hipsters have found a safe refuge in the upper income brackets as television comics or movie actors. The late James Dean, for one, was a hipster hero. It is tempting to describe the hipster in psychiatric terms as infantile, but the style of his infantilism is a sign of the times. He does not try to enforce his will on others, Napoleon-like fashion, but contends himself with a magic omnipotence never disproved because it's never tested. As the only extreme nonconformist of his generation, he exercises a powerful, if underground appeal for conformists, though through newspaper accounts of his delinquencies, his structuralist jazz, and his emotive grunt words. Probably we will never be able to determine the psychic havoc of the camps, you know which ones, or the atom bomb upon which the conscious mind of almost everyone alive in these years, for the first time in civilized history, perhaps for the first time in all history, we have been forced to live with a suppressed knowledge that the smallest facets of our personality, or the most minor projection of our own ideas, or indeed the absence of ideas and the absence of personality, could mean equally well that we might soon be doomed to die as the cipher in some vast statistical operation in which our teeth would be counted, our hair would be shaved, and our death itself would be unknown, unhonored, and unremarkable. A death which could not follow with dignity as possible consequence to serious actions we have chosen, but rather a death by deus ex machina in a chamber or radioactive city. And so if we, in the midst of civilization, that civilization founded upon the Faustian urge to dominate nature by mastering time, mastering the links of social cause and effect, in the middle of an economic civilization founded upon the confidence that time could indeed be subjected to our will, our psyche was subjected itself to the intolerable anxiety that death being causeless, life was causeless as well, and time deprived of cause and effect had come to a stop. Very Heideggerian in the sense of being towards death, being a random statistical occurrence rather than something that is meaningful. And so this is where the hipster comes in. The hipster is a product of a mass awareness of mortality. And notice how I said in my article from a month ago, the narcissist, the psychopath, the lolcow, that the hipster is looking for a form of being towards death. The hipster lives in the shadow of a collapse. But what is our shadow of a collapse? Maybe you could say the Twin Towers, but rather it is one age to the other, is the internet world that marks a sort of death of a civilization into a new becoming. And so the hipster of the 2010s, the hipster of the 2000s, sorry, not the 2010s, is again repeating the same patterns that Norman Mailer talks about. And then, of course, he equates it with the sort of life world of a being in America that is very close to the outskirts of civilization, which is the, FBA, the Foundational Black American, right? So skipping ahead, he says, a stench of fear has come out of every pore of American life, and we suffer from collective failure of nerve. The only courage, with rare exceptions, that we have been witness to has been the isolated courage of isolated people. It is on this bleak scene that a phenomenon has appeared, the American existentialist, the hipster, the man who knows that if our collective conditions is to live with instant death by atomic war, relatively quick death by the state, as universal, concentrated nature, or with slow death by conformity with every creative and rebellious instinct stifled, as would damage to the mind and the heart and the liver and the nerves, no research foundation for cancer will discover in a hurry. If the fate of 20th century man is to live with death from adolescence to premature senses, why then the only life giving answer is to accept the terms of death, to live with death as immediate danger, to divorce oneself from society, to exist without roots, to set out on that uncharted journey into the rebellious imperatives of the self. In short, whether the life is a criminal or not, the decision is to encourage the psychopath in oneself to explore that domain of experience where security is boredom, and therefore sickness, and one's existence in the present is the enormous present, which is without past or future, memory or planned intention, the life where a man must go until he is beat, where he must gamble with his energies through all those small or large cries of the courage and unforeseen situation which beset his day, where he must be within it, without it, or doomed not to swing. The unstated essence of the hip, its psychopathic brilliance, quivers with the knowledge that new kinds of victories increase one's power for new kinds of perception, and details the wrong kind of defeats, attacking the body and imprisoning one's energy until one is jailed in the prison air of other people's habits, other people's defeats, boredom, quiet desperation, and muted ice self-destroying rage. Muted icy self-destroying rage. One is hip or one is square. The alternative which each new generation coming into American life is beginning to feel. One is rebellious, is a rebel, or one conforms. One is a frontiersman in the wild west of American imagination and nightlife, or else a square cell trapped in the totalitarian tissues of American society, doomed willy-nilly to conform if one is to succeed. A totalitarian society makes enormous demands on the courage of men, and partially totalitarian society makes even greater demands, for the general anxiety is greater. That's funny, partially totalitarian society. Indeed, if one is to be a man, almost any kind of unconventional action often takes disproportionate courage. So it is no accident that the source of the hip is that of the foundational Black American, for he has been living on the margins between totalitarianism and democracy for 2 centuries. And then he talks about jazz music and so on and so forth. But what's very interesting here, and I highly recommend if you can get it to read the whole essay. What's very interesting is that Norman Mailer, I mean, you can critique it as well, because the social conditions of the 60s is quite different from the social conditions of today, where a lot of the rebellious attitudes that he was talking about were then later absorbed into the greater culture industry. Like, from 1957 till nowadays, you could say that transgression has become, marketed back to you. It's very much like the Baudrillardian essay, the after the orgy civilization that we live in.
It's
right?
the safe, edgy stuff. Like there was earlier this summer, I think it was some British pop artist that had the song was incredibly sexual in nature, but everyone, I mean, even
I'm gonna give you what you want, or whatever it was called.
Yeah, something like that. Everyone kind of looked at it and were like, oh,
and everyone's like gender, like
everyone was tired.
Ambiguous.
No one was like, it was like there's safe, edgy, and then there was like safe, horny, and it was safe, horny. Like, it was like it was ugly, it was guttural, it was just nasty, but like it's exactly what I would expect, because it's everything else I've seen on TV.
Right.
No,
that's what Butcher talks about after the orgies.
I know, but like even in this one, right? Like where you're talking about like our transgressiveness is marketed back to us. Like, you've noticed that like sex isn't really on television anymore, but like gore has really taken up a notch.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, like there's still sex, but I mean, like I think TV's way more gory than it used to be.
Yeah.
Or at
he's
least
guttural. He's that. Yeah, yeah. Anyways, go ahead, Prude. Yeah.
And so I've noticed that that's sort of been the thing, and I wonder how much of that has been inspired by other things. Like I wonder how much Live Leak has had an impact on like the TV making industry.
So then he talks about the hipster trying to find the apocalyptic orgasm. That's another, like, the blowing out of the self.
Yeah, but I mean, like, don't we do that already? Like, I mean, like I don't know what Mailer writes, but like
it's always frustrated for him. Yeah.
I mean, like, what are we all looking for? Like, I'm just waiting for something to happen. I guess I'm gonna just goon until I find the right girl. I guess, like,
that's literally what Mailer's talking about. Yeah,
yeah, or like we covered this took like 4 episodes because we spent so much time on it. But like we covered our friend Billionaire Psycho's article, like Pygmalion and the Anime Girl.
That was 40 episodes ago.
It was like 40 episodes ago, but like we did 4 episodes on that specific like essay of his. And I mean, like, what is the apocalyptic drive, or like the Freudian death drive, other than to like craft the perfect e-girl, or to like or how sex now has become so like consent-based victimization for a lot of like Zoomers and libtards.
Oh, Alaric the Barbarian, in his new book, he writes an essay.
Yeah, go buy Schizo Posting by Alaric. It's great. Highly recommend. We may cover one of his essays.
Yeah, we will.
I might just invite him on.
Maybe next week.
Yeah, and then Steins Gate. So after that, but I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Is just like everyone, the Terrifier. That's a good
point, John.
Like, a throwback to the early '80s. Except back then, all that gore was kind of like gore back like 40 years ago was edgy. Like even the Freddy Krueger movies and the Nightmare on Elm Street, all that sort of stuff was edgy 30 to 40 years ago. But like as awful as the TV show The Boys is on Amazon, the show literally opens up with the like main character's ethnically ambiguous GF getting turned into like giblets because like the speed guy runs right through her at like Mach 1 or whatever.
Well, that's like Itchy the Killer.
Yeah, but like but back then it was transgressive. Now it's like shock value, but you're like, oh, okay, and you get used to it. There's not a lot of like, I feel like this is why what would make for good transgression or good transgressive art these days would be something that refers back to the like existential dread, like not gore, but like being alone with your thoughts for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it sounds dumb, but like if you were to remake Saw, it would be like, okay, you're alone, or you're alone. Like there's a way out. Or can you talk about yourself for 5 minutes? Can you put down the phone? And saying if you can't put down the phone, or
that's what DFW said, like why people don't want to read.
Yeah.
It's like, well, because
so I have this is my spicy hot take about David Foster Wallace. The more interviews I watch of him talking about like complacency or like content in general about television of the time, the more I agree with him.
Yeah.
And maybe it's terminal and it's too late for me and it's over, and like
I haven't read
I'll turn into like an irony cell. But until then, I listen to him talk and I'm like, no, there's a lot of, I think he gets some of it wrong, but I agree with him more than I disagree. Yeah. And maybe it's over for me in that regard. But like, I think it is true. Like we'd rather drown ourselves in like nice coherent narratives that wrap up in 30 minutes or something I can binge in 8 hours, and then the day is over, and then I can go back onto my other screen and scroll for a little bit to feel good and to connect with people and to offer my opinion in an authoritative declarative statement that allows others to understand I'm the good guy and go from there, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we are the youth of the apocalypse because we all want to find the end of the world, at least for ourselves, and then relish in it, whether it's our own version of like 1,000-year tribulation, or better yet, a quick and swift end where I'm raptured away into cloud 9 of abyss and pleasure, or even more so, I get to endure and be a part of a chosen elect that forms a group or a community, or I'm groomed into something. We're all looking for the end.
You don't want to be vaporized on the side of the pavement.
No.
Yeah.
But some do.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own flavor for how they wish to go.
Yeah.
Which is sad, because even to say apocalypse is just revelation.
Yeah.
It's not Armageddon. It's not the end of the age. It's not the end of the time. And again, because we're like we are in a sort of this like Christian moment, or at least there's the echoes of Christianity, and like even this political era, like there is the very clear.
Even Nick Land's reading the King James Bible.
Yeah. Well, I'm only halfway through he debate talk thing he did with
Yeah,
Dugan
me
on
too.
Oren's channel. I've not.
I was sort of
finished
out
it.
of it because I just had my tooth pulled, and I was sort of like not really. I was like half paying attention to it. Like I was kind of out of it, you know.
I deliberately have been watching it, taking notes, because I wanted to write it or do like a little weird after action report. I don't know, but
I noticed that Dugan's not a very good interviewee.
he's not a good public speaker.
No, he's not. No, he's a better writer.
I was surprised. I mean, like Land talked slow, but I was like surprised at how concise he is when speaking. I know he did that Theory Underground interview I think like last year or earlier this year. I don't recall. The timeline's been such a blur for me, to a point where I really do worry about my memory. But like, he's rather coherent when he gets to speak.
Yeah.
But I mean, in regards though to like the apocalypse or like to the end, I think that there's a greater desire for annihilation now, on an interpersonal level, because like you said, like the economy is vibes based. Everything is based on like the sensation that things are fine or that things are good. And when you've been told, especially if you're like a Zoomer, that things are pretty bad, and then you're still living in the aftermath of, like, you're an older millennial of like .com, '08, 9/11, and then all this shit with COVID.
Iraq, GWAT,
yeah, like you're under 40 and things didn't really go well your way, right? And like you were sold a mountain of promises, and a mountain of entitlement too. And then all of a sudden that's taken away from you. And then like, oh, now your children or your parents' children, like Zoomers bring on like the generational differences. It's like, now what are you going to do? And it's like, they've got it worse than you do. And so why are there people like be on X telling you that like a lot of this terrorism is considered nihilistic? I don't know how much I agree with that take, but like there is a open desire that like, no, there is emptiness, and what greater emptiness is there than for me to either romantically or performatively to go out on my own terms?
Well, this is why Norman Mailer, this is why I bought this collection of essays when I was reading in the used bookstore, because he really describes what you're talking about in the sense that the hipster is a psychopath because he transgresses all social frameworks and he transgresses his own self to where it's not in sort of like so much like the Patrick Bateman stereotype, but the hipster is someone who is infantile in the sense that they have no past and future. You know, a child has to go through a process of enculturation to become an adult with age, but not being in a sort of like pure postmodern limbo where past and future become irrelevant to you because the past is so horrifying, the future is disrupted. You live in the age of the sort of like mass machinic like exploitation of the body and the mind through various industries, right? The culture industry, you know, the managerial state. So your means of rebellion is to embrace this sort of like individual like being, like you are a non-self, right? That is, but even that is also sold to you in a way of like annihilating oneself without past and future. And so the hipster to Norman Mailer is this very complicated thing that is then, and then he also predicts, he's writing this in the 50s, then what comes down the pipe is the civil rights movement and the countercultural movements of the 60s. He's writing this in the late 50s because they're identifying with a sort of like subaltern nature of like, okay, well, you know, we live in this like Western capitalist liberal democracy system, but then there's all these people that are sort of like dropouts, and then we have to like embrace them. And then he writes about this in his book Armies of the Night, where he's like cataloging the New Age movement and the civil rights movement and the 60s counterculture. But then, of course, like what Norman Mailer is saying is that, you know, he said this later on in the 70s. He's like, I spent years and years embracing these people and trying to write about them. But a lot of them became the sort of like victims and perpetrators of the things that they rebelled against. So here he writes, like children, hipsters are frightful. Fighting for their next sweet. They languish in a set of subtle indicators of their success or failure in the competition for pleasure. Unsatiated but oblivious to the social sense that there is not nearly enough sweet for everybody. And so the sweet goes only to the victor, the best, the most, the man who knows the most about how to find his energy and how not to lose it. The emphasis is on energy because the psychopath and the hipster are nothing without it, since they do not have the protection of a position or a class to rely on what they have overextended themselves. So the language of hip is the language of energy, how it is found and how it is lost. But let us say I have jotted down perhaps a dozen words. And again, this is very much like cultural writer trying to like understand what the kids are into. I've written a dozen words, the hip perhaps most in use and most likely to last with a minimum of variation. Words are man, go, put down, make, beat, cool, swing, with it, crazy, dig, flip, creep, hip, square. They serve a variety of purposes, and the nuance of the voice uses the nuance of the situation to convey the subtle contextual differences. If the hipster moves through the night and through his life on a constant search with glimpses of Mecca in many a turn of his experience, Mecca being the apocalyptic orgasm, and if everyone in the civilized world is at least in some small degree a sexual cripple, the hipster lives with the knowledge of how he is sexually crippled and when he is alive. And the fact of the faces of experience with life presents to him each day are engaged, dismissed, or avoided as he needs direction in his lifemanship makes possible. For life is a constant between people in which the victor generally recuperates quickly and the loser takes long to mend. A perpetual competition of colliding explorers in which one must grow or else pay more for remaining the same. Pay in sickness or in depression or anguish for the lost opportunity. But pay or grow. Very Nietzschean. Very Nietzschean. Very, genealogy of morals. Very will to power. Either you're growing, you're ascending, or you're declining. That's it. And there is a Nietzscheanism there. But it's very contradictory in that the hipster, or like even the modern poster, as I related to in my article, or even Nietzsche himself, on the one hand has a reverence for this ancient chthonic tradition of like the primitive primeval upsurge of energy. But at the same time, this hipster is someone who doesn't have a past or a future. Someone who is like the Muslim or the person subjected to bare life that Agamben talks about. Again, another Nietzschean, Agamben, right? So it's like a bundle of contradictions. And so that's the thing. Like, and nowadays you can see this, but you see like, and not like, and it's like people are going to clubs or having like a lot of like group activities or whatever, or finding their fix in very like limited experiences. The limited experiences now become virtualized. And it's like, you're even like a pale shadow of the hipster of what Norman Mailer was talking about with like the 60s counterculture or like the 50s beatnik, like the Jack Kerouac type figure, like the Zen wanderer. You're not that, not even the poster's not even that. It's very interesting that way. It's like it becomes more fake and becomes more LGBT, if you know what I mean. No, it's true. It's true. Like we've even abstracted the sense of transgression in terms of like a cultural outcast, right? Because like, what can you be outcasted from? Now, yes, you can be outcasted from mainstream society. You can be outcasted from the social consensus, from like the public morality. But that in itself is a very empty signifier. It's something that Ulrich the Barbarian said, like you're just engaging with the signifier. Like that is what like the AI partner or like the furry or any sort of manner of role playing or kink, that is you being engaged with just the signifier and not the signified. You are like a pure semiotic being, he calls it. And that's, I think, like even transgression is that way as well. Because what is transgression? You're posting. You're a poster. You're transgressing. And it's like, okay, but you're not really going out there and having like a limited experience. Now, there's value to posting. There's value to being an online hipster. But what value is there? It's not like you're going to the nightclub and you're going to like the city underbelly society. Those two become like a weird form of like poverty tourism or like, subaltern tourism that you engage with in a very standoffish, mediated way. You know, it's like all those pill eater videos of like safe sleazy and hot and weird honey, and it's like, you know, yeah, it's like cruise punk that like hits
it's
up
effectively it's sterile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But did Norman Mailer, he really predicted this modern condition, you know what I mean? Like it's but he, like, the problem with Norman Mailer, though, to criticize him in this essay is that, like, he's worshiping them. He wants to be the godfather of this countercultural movement. But then later on, he realizes, like, oh shit, like, actually, they became like poet laureates and PhD candidates, and it's like, I'm like bombing the Pentagon as a weatherman one day, but then I'm like, I'm a poet laureate the next, you know, after I've become 30 something years old. Or like the Krust punker that gives lectures about like how he was a Krust punk or guttercore or whatever. It's like, you know, like there's kind of, I don't know. There's kind of like, there's something very trying to have this pantomime of transgression while being like a state actor. It's like this one thing that Eugipius posted recently, where this Antifa squat house in Germany, in Berlin, how it was being refurbished with windows and heating, central air by the government subsidies. And it's like, you know, like, man, like there's something hilarious about it. But I mean, everyone's subjected to this. Is not to say like I'm not doing the whole like woke centrist thing, but like at the end of the day, the Antifa crust punk house being refurbished by cultural grants by the government, and the like American right wing online poster that's having like the Moonman Gio Scotti edit being posted by the DHS account. It's like, I don't know, man. Like it's kind of, we live in terrible, you know, we live in interesting times, and interest does not equate good, you know. Anyways, I've been ranting for.
Yeah, no, it raises an interesting question about where does one assign value, and it's like, oh look, there's the GigaChad dialogue basically coming out of DHS, and it's like, dude, there are like 5 ongoing insurrections right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
There's whole states that are rebelling against federal authorities. Yeah,
yeah.
Like in Chicago.
We've effectively entered a nullification crisis, but it's about how many criminal foreigner invading our populations can you keep in your city.
That video was quite embarrassing of like they let that one guy go, ICE.
Well, they were overwhelmed, which I mean, again,
they were overwhelmed. Yeah,
they shouldn't have to be overwhelmed, but also because tells you like it goes back to the question of sovereignty, and I'm going to hold my tongue before I jam out.
No, but the point being is that I think like that's like at the end of the day, like it is largely vibes based, and I think like the problem. Okay, I will, to critique my own stance here, I will say that like there it is becoming like a very popular like Substacker cultural critic woke centrist point of like, well, it's all vibes, it's all like stochastic nihilism, like, you know, that even like Chris Rufo had that article, right? But I do think that there is a grain of truth there, but to then take it to an nth degree where you're sort of like hand waving away actual meaningful political and cultural distinctions, I think is another side, which is a pitfall that should be avoided. And I think you can't, you know, really go too far in the whole like everything is vibes critique. I mean, yes, everything is vibes.
Well, you can say
but
that,
there are
right? But
real things too.
This goes back to what I was saying about like the flattening of our perception of like the horizon of time.
Yeah.
Like, because our expectations can be flattened down to like almost what feels like 2 dimensions of like now and then like 5 milliseconds later. It becomes almost impossible for you to like. It's easy to say everything's vibes based when you're responding to the like latest happening on Twitter that you call a not happening, and ergo it becomes all but impossible to really assert or any determination of like, well, what's actually going on, you know? Like, and that's why I said like I think it requires you to take a step back, right? And be like, can we measure this maybe on a more longitudinal scale? And but I don't even mean like 20 years. I mean like, can you like maybe look back and look, say like the last 5 weeks?
Yes.
You know, and we so much of us, so we just don't do that. In part because like our conceptual framework for time is warped by the very platform we're on.
Yeah. No, but that's what, again, Norman Mailer, he like literally predicted this.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
I agree with Mailer here. I really do.
There's something that Sex Freeman said, oscillation Americans. No, I mean, that's, again, this is to bring up Virilio. This is like the being of speed. This is the dromology. You know? You're constantly in a cycle of speed and acceleration, but not really an acceleration.
Are you enjoying the dromologue? Are you enjoying the speed? Are you ready for the next train derailment of a shit show that you don't know how to react to because you've now created a feedback loop mechanism that no one has ever created before online, and it only takes one person to do something in real life based off those things that create an accident or a tragedy?
It's very rhizomatic in a way.
Could you imagine?
Environments, yeah.
Oh, wait, that already happened.
Yeah. No, but it doesn't accelerate towards like a real singularity the way that Nick Land lays it out. It's more of like, it's just like a constant rhizomatic upsurge and decline, and then there's another rhythm that changes the whole order of things. If we do live, I think like
but if we were to expand our time frame for how we might look at it, we could probably measure very concrete details of decline, which is obvious.
Maybe on a larger time frame, like Foucault and Baudrillard and Nick Land are correct, but Deleuze seems to be like the best philosophic option of the here and now
at the present moment.
Yeah, like it doesn't have like, there's no like total line of flight to where it like is all consuming, because you're always going to pull back into another thing, and you're going to have like a period of stagnation that then, then
until you're out of places to go.
Exactly. And then like, because remember, like you have to remember this about like Dolce and Gabbana, Deleuze Guattari, D&G, that when they mean like total detorialization or an absolute line of flight, they don't mean that like as a good thing. That can be very terrible. It can actually disrupt a whole order that perhaps shouldn't, or a whole like cultural or media or even physical ecology that maybe should not be disrupted. Because what is an absolute line of flight in terms of an ecology? It's taking like an ecosystem and like throwing a bunch of dioxin into it. Dioxin. It's like Love Canal or whatever. That's an absolute line of flight. That's an invasive penetration of a natural ecosystem by something that is wholly foreign and wholly outside. That is a synthetic chemical waste. And but then there's also beautiful examples of that. There's like some stuff that Bataille talks about, although a lot of that's not beautiful in the conventional sense. But there's always great feats of sagacity, and there's a sacralization of the self that occurs in these very limited experiences of religious revelation. But then the other example is that it's the dioxin in the natural environment. That's itself is a absolute deterritorialization. Absolute deterritorialization of the environment. Sorry, my mouth is getting drier. So I think like that's what a lot of like activist academic types, they sort of sidestep that in Deleuze and Guattari. It's not always going to be this like good thing, right? It's something that Kerwin said recently in his article critiquing Teilhard de Chardin. De Chardin being a huge influence on Deleuze and Guattari, where it's like the new sphere, and it's like this new agey thing where we evolve in our consciousness to a greater point of expansion.
Christogenesis.
Yeah, Christogenesis. But then Kerwin's saying like, no, actually the way evolution works, if you buy it into like the Darwinian thing, is that it's not that it's better necessarily. It's that it just evolves into a different form. And it's not that consciousness with the greater ability of information exchange, it doesn't evolve towards having these like, everyone becomes these angelic Brahmins that use the internet to its utmost maximum degree of intelligence, and stuff that Negressani talks about with his evolution of intelligence work. It's like, no, people use it for slop, and they use it for fucking Mr. Beast or Prawn or whatever, because a lot of consciousness, unfortunately, in a lot of instances, without a sort of like nexus point of a disruption that comes about from a paradigm shift. To use like the Kuhn thing, right? The paradigm shift. It's like a lot of everyday bandwidth of consciousness unfortunately operates the same as electricity in that it will find a path of least resistance towards something. The way that even capitalism works, and I think it's a pretty good critique of capitalism, that, the sort of Friedrich Hayek notion of complexity and spontaneous organization and mutual competition breeding something better and more efficient and more creative. A lot of economies are driven by a quest for monopoly and stagnation and finding a good thing when it's there and sucking the juice dry when it's not. And instead of this sort of like creative destruction type of thing that all these like libertarians like Friedrich Hayek talk about. We've seen this so many times where if you have an ability to create a monopoly around a resource or around a service, that will be the model of that economy. It won't be finding a new and beautiful creative way to break out of that monopoly in this like free play of creative destruction and competition. Not really. And human consciousness works in a similar manner. It takes a very dramatic happening to break people out of a form of present consciousness and an attention economy. And so
usually something existential.
Yes.
Or a literal brush with mortality.
Yeah. See, that should be an irony leftist handle right there. Theo Bucks Deschardin. That's like...
I'm literally going to go look that up and see if someone said that already.
Yeah. But anyways, I think that's a good way to end the stream, to go to super. Steve, those super chats. I know we're exploiting your attention right now, but
nope, that's a Sex Freakman original right there.
Yep. Theo Bucks Deschardin.
That's really
great.
Good.
That's really, I like that. That's some like irony cell should have that as their.
It's all your
big pet. I can't say that on. Oh no, I thought it was with an O. Gradient descent. Gradient descent. Slop kitchens, feasible lines, comic block flats. You know what's funny? The movie by Cronenberg, Videodrome, is essentially the TV slop kitchens. It's like homeless shelters that are TV banks.
Yeah.
That was great. That's oh man, I love Videodrome.
It's so good.
Theo Bucks to Shardy. I don't know, man.
The shoddy.
Why is Bronze Age Shoddy taking Theo Bucks?
No, but if we can't make fun of her, then what's the point?
She's all right. I like her. She's a nice woman. She's a nice woman. All right, let's go. Please, this is your chance.
You audio people never get a chance to appreciate all the changing avatars.
Yeah. There you go. That's classic proof.
Please be patient. My mom took Tylenol. I'll just go back to my usual self.
That's a good one. So
I think this one's a J Ford
stars?
original.
Yeah, I think so. Oh boy. I prefer Entropy. Link in the description of link in the comments of this live stream, and also down in the description. I'll try to come out with the content on it, but I'm trying to work on this article and get it out in the end of the week. And like I said, the 2-part interview with Shane Swanson is very fascinating, great, and I highly recommend it.
It's very good.
I'm gonna have to go, and Prude has a bunch of content as well. So I'm going to go to the YouTube. I think we only have a few on YouTube. Most of them are on Entropy. And so here we have, where is it? Is this from this week or see all? It only lists 2 here, but I know there's more than 2. All right, we have Volpez for $10. Sneed symbol, scroll tool. Thank you, Volpez. And Sneed symbol scroll toll. Thank you. And Big Ben for $20. I want to be the monkey in the middle. Thank you, Big Ben. Thank you. And sacrifice his lungs for the aesthetic. There you go. There you go.
I quit smoking, but yeah, it's well. There we go.
I'm too far jazzed to ever calm down. I could have swore that there was another.
Have you tried smooth jazz?
I love smooth jazz.
So do I.
There's like whole like 24-hour radios on YouTube dedicated to smooth jazz.
That's true.
All right, now let's go to entropy. We'll do least to biggest, embiggened. Dunk the short-legged Mac Daddy. I love that reference to Pastor Manning. A Chino for $3. Gio, do you think the Kurds are going to come out of the on top in Syria, or is their fate similar to the Alawites and Christians? Also, any thoughts on the new Jordan Castro novel? I have never read Jordan Castro, but I heard his new novel is sort of like a Bronze Age mindset, like professor that is like gets into bodybuilding or something like that. So I don't know. It's kind of like a interesting concept. But as for the Kurds, well, there's always like a lot. I'm not going to say too much. I'm not really that learned. I'm not like my friends at War Report or whatever. But I do notice that the Kurds do find a way to slip out of very sticky situations. I mean, they do have a lot of very weird glow-in-the-dark connections. And I don't know if what's his name in Syria, the Turkish puppet there, Jelani, I don't know if he's really went hard on the Kurds. And I don't know, Prude, if you know, what is the Kurdish relation to Turkey nowadays? Is it still bad? Or no?
Yeah. I don't think that they've ever really resolved that issue. I mean, this is why Turkey's previous incursions into like northern Iraq and northern Syria has been such an issue with American backed Kurds, as well as with the German government as well. Like to the Turks, they're like it's a terrorist / ethnic ongoing conflict since like the 80s.
Yeah,
they would really like to get rid of them. So, I mean, it's still an ongoing problem as far as I know. I doubt that issue will ever get resolved.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to say, but I think have the Kurds been persecuted to the same extent as the Christians and the Alawites?
Or? Yes and no, but also the Kurds have been proven to be more. I guess the Kurds are. I guess it's easier to fund them than it would be to say funding Christian militant groups. Like this was like the Lebanese civil war. Like it's just a matter of, I guess, what your existing connections are. Plus you have a group of people that have been well armed, trained, and funded over the last 40 plus years. So no, they suffer persecution, but not to the same degree.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is that the Iranians and the Russians haven't been able to offer as much support to the Alawites and the Christians. They've really been overwhelmed. So it's a hard situation. I mean, maybe I can probably foresee the Kurds being persecuted, but they will fight back. And there's still like a lot of like even North American and European support for the Kurds that I think will prevent the puppet Jelani from totally going after them the way they do with Christians and Alawites. But you never know, though. The Kurds always, they still have this very contentious relationship to Turkey. So, I mean, I don't know who's going to come out on top. I don't really see the Kurds coming out on top. I think Jelani is pretty, unfortunately, pretty secure in his position. Although you never know, right? I mean, that could change very quickly as well. So he had this meeting at the UN. Did you see that, Prude?
I did.
Yeah, that was totally disgusting. But what are you going to do? So thank you for the question. That's a good question, Dunk. And now we have Sex Freakman for $10. Reaction: the attention economy, insofar as political and artistic success is to capture what's on people's minds. If those thoughts, feelings shift faster, there's no time to organize around anything substantial, but only the very basic banal thoughts that are more stable, so nothing ever happens well unless. That's a very good point. I mean, things happen so fast that you really can't account for. I mean, it's the same thing with, I think, global liberal democracy, quote unquote, in general, where it really does. I mean, even the ancients, even Plato writes about this. Like, it does really devolve into lowest common denominator bread and circuses for a reason, because you can't administer life to a very complex degree given vast populations of differentiated individuals and people. And so anything in that, Prude?
No, I thought he nailed it on the head.
Yeah, it's good. And he has a follow-up again for $10. Unless you have the reach to wrangle the Hydra or whatever, influence what people consume across sources and time. This is why you have to sell out to have any real success, but also why meme magic is self-defeating and you can't do much with the norm. He uses a certain word I can't use. If you're even a little politically minded, yes, I know that's a huge black pill, but that's a good point. And in a way, like the trade-off for vast influence is a suppression of originality, a suppression of authenticity. And this has always been the case, and maybe not so much in the ancient world, but certainly in the modern times, it has always been the case. And meme magic is self-defeating in the sense that when a lot of these meme plexes touch the mainstream, they unfortunately evaporate to leave behind a sort of pale shadow of itself. And, or like Serfina says here, you could be like Jordan Peterson and just melt your brain and you won't have to worry about it. And then you're sort of like, Electra Complex daughter can become your mouthpiece, and oh, that's tragic. But anyways, but that's a good point, Sex Freakman. And moving on to Sam153 for $20. Have some gabagool on me. Spoopy month is spoopy comfort. Any thoughts on this forced Windows 11 upgrade BS? Well, there's a very interesting video. If you type in on YouTube, Windows Update Obama, you'll that's a very funny video. I think Nightmare Vision posted it. No, but thank you, Sam153. And we will try to do some Halloween themes later in the month. Maybe we'll review some found footage films, or we'll talk about.
I would love to review. I would love to review a found footage film, and in fact, I would.
Have you ever watched Savage Land?
I have not.
It's on YouTube. Watch it.
I was told by a friend to watch Butterfly Kisses.
I heard that was good too. I gotta watch it
because it's like a found footage film about found footage.
Oh, nice! I gotta watch that.
So I'm eager to watch something meta.
Yeah, later in the month I will release the content-minded episode of Found Footage. Me and Parker Longbaugh.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we talk, but we can review. I wanted to go more in depth on Savage Land, and we could also talk about Butterfly Kisses. I mean, I'm sure we're not probably gonna do the whole like Kino Ween thing where we dress up or whatever, but I don't know, maybe.
I don't want to steal a bit.
Yeah.
Let them keep it. The last time I wore a costume was for a Shakespeare thing.
Nice. Butterfly Kisses. And then we
sure
have
that's what the movie's called.
It is?
Yeah, 2018.
Nice. And please sneed those super chats, last chance. And we have Siwook, our good friend, for US $25. Come on, guys. Let's hit the goal and do the next edition of Gio Tries It. And it's funny because that's in reference to the latest Ethan Ralph film where he's trying to rizz up this e-girl, this autistic e-girl, and he's in a Culver's, and he's trying to review the Culver's burger, but he's also trying to rizz up this like very, kind of like not all there younger e-girl that's like half his age.
Yikes.
It's glorious content. But we'll see what happens. And she's just like bodying him the whole time. It was very funny. She was like, she was kind of, anyways. But thank you. Can we hit the goal? I think we did hit the goal. So, if there's any more sneaking of super chats, let me check on Entropy or YouTube. We will be live next week on Prude's channel. Is Culver's good? I've never had Culver.
I've been to Culver's exactly once, and it was like, I want to say 2018 is when I went. So I don't have an opinion. I could go this Thursday. No, I don't. Maybe. I don't know.
Culver's in Texas?
Yes. One actually just opened up near where I live, so I guess I don't have an excuse. I can
Oh yeah, DSP tries it. What's the reference to?
I guess I can go find out. I don't really eat out anymore because it's expensive. But
he's eating in.
I guess that's what you're. Well, I cook. That's literally usually every other day.
No, I was making Andrew Dice Clay.
I know, and
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna make an AIDS joke, Gio. Don't.
That was like that Tim Dillon one where he's in the elevator. Like, AIDS, let's talk about it. That was funny. You know what's so funny? You know, he gets so much heat for being like anti-woke comedian, but Tim Dillon, I think, was the only one that did not. Tim Dillon was like the only one that didn't accept the invitation to that Saudi Arabia comedy festival. But all these like, you know, moralizing, like past their due date, like Bill Burr, they're like going to the Saudi Arabia comedy festival. It's like, it's so funny. It's like all the people that culture cancels and despises, they turn out to be right. It's very funny how that works. Like,
where you go? Oh, you know, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. No, but it's very funny. Like, for example, they like criticized Johnny Rotten as vulgar and terrible and destructive for years, but he was the only one in the late 70s that called out Jimmy Savile. And he was banned from the BBC for decades. And you know who was the only one who called out Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, before he got canceled in the 2010s? Guess who? Vincent Gallo was the only one before Rachel McAdams, whatever her name is, before that other one publicly came out against Harvey Weinstein, and his film career in the mainstream was basically ruined, except for like knowing, like, except having friends that would put him in films. So it's like all these like truly cultural monsters, like, you know, David Icke, he called out Jimmy Savile, Johnny Rotten, Vincent Gallo, Tim Dillon, all these cultural monsters. In the long run, they're vindicated. And they're the only ones that spoke out. But then when it became trendy, it's like everyone forgot about that Vincent Gallo was like the first one that called out Harvey Weinstein. Yes, there's a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia, and they basically threw money at all these like dinosaurs to, like, you know,
be funny.
Yeah, be funny. Oh, Owen Zaleski for $3. Enjoy the art, Gio. God bless. Do more art streams. Thank you. I mean, I do a lot of art shorts, but I know it's incredible, right? People like, how would you have a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia? That just seems. It's kind of like how they wanted WrestleMania.
The jokes write themselves.
Yeah, it's like WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, or whatever. Like they wanted all these.
Or
like,
the Iron Sheik always wins.
No, but they paid for all these dinosaurs. Like, they had this like truly abominable match. It was Goldberg and Shawn. Was it Goldberg and Shawn Michaels versus the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane? And all these guys were like, except for Kane, were like over the hill, and it was like a terrible, terrible match. But they paid for it. They paid millions of dollars to have WWE in Saudi Arabia. So I guess, you know, whoever pays the piper. But anyways. But they better rate themselves because those guys won. That's a good one. That's a good one. Sex treatment. But anyways,
until next time.
Until next time. Thank you all for coming. This was a pretty good stream, and we discussed a lot of concepts that weren't, you know, the usual hot take. Well, I guess they're hot takes, but Oh yeah, Smiling Friends season 3 is coming on.
I think it just dropped yesterday, the 6th.
Nice. All
So
right.
I guess I know what I'm doing later when I have downtime this week.
Yeah. All right, as we always say, God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, gents.